Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Before we get started, read the wonderful disclaimer. I am not, and I repeat, I am not a financial advisor. I am not your financial advisor. Please do your own due diligence. I just do research. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only. And with that being said, somehow Chels was first again. Rusty is here. Star is here. Livia is here. I'm beneficial. Ray. Coffee and croissants. Is that what was on the menu this morning? Just want to know. All right. This is ridiculous. 10K steps before noon. I'm lucky if I got 1,000 in right now. Craziness. Tommy B, what's going on? G Money, what's going on? Joe is here. June is here. We got the crew here. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. You know what? Maybe I should have bought Hood for the Culture, but you know what? I didn't. And it's okay. It's okay, ladies and gentlemen. Can't own everything. And I know it seems like I do own everything, but I assure you I don't. All right. We got a lot to go over. Some stuff I want to watch with everybody, even though I don't know where I put it. We got the commodity markets moving. Trump made some comments this morning that I'm not necessarily happy about. Brent is flirting with 80. Brent is still under 70. It's still under 80. It's at 79.79. WTI 77.02. I would have liked it at 75. Still like it here. Gas is under 3. It's at 289, ladies and gentlemen. Indexes. They were red. They were green. They were red. Now they're green. The NASDAQ 100 is up 119. The Dow Jones, good old Dow Jones, 203. The S&P flat. The NASDAQ composite down 36. Is what it is. It is what it is. Let's see where we are. Tech is getting a little bit of love. Communication services bleeding out. I bet that means Meta's getting screwed over. Oh, President Trump tries to cancel Clayton intelligence confirmation hearing scheduled for today. I will keep you updated. All right. Hood. When's the last day that Robinhood led my watch list? I can't remember. Congratulations to all of you. I already did the disclaimer today. You just missed it. I'll tell you, I can't remember when Hood was up 10% and leading my watch list. Congratulations to all of you that are in it. Congrats. ARM Holdings, 422. Broadcom trying to get back to 400. Nebius, 278. This is getting a little crazy. Marvell, trying to get that Carvel cake. SoFi, 1852. Call me crazy. Call me crazy for buying it and buying spreads. That's fine. I've been called worse. Anthony Noto keeps buying shares. He's not a shook little baby, as Matt would say. You know, I truly believe in SoFi. And that's why I've been bullish since 2021. I've never changed my stance. I have been annoyed at SoFi at times. There's no question. I'm the most critical bull on SoFi. But the important thing is I'm always bullish. And I think SoFi is going to do big things. Don't be surprised. I'm just going to say it. Don't be surprised if SoFi becomes a catch-up trade in the second half of 2026. Okay? AMD, Lena, I don't think she's here yet, but you know what? 523, she's got to be happy. The ESMH, 634, next decade, 747. Micron, 1,045. Rocket Money, 107. CoreWeave, 118. The Qual of the Com, 217. Palantir, 135. ET not getting past 19. And then we got the losers, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start at the bottom. SpaceX, ladies and gentlemen. Space to the X, 193. Interesting. I wonder where we find support. I mean, I don't even know how to figure out support on a chart that's 4 or 5 days old. Maybe it's 190, maybe it's not. Meta under 19. I feel like a rant video is going to come. I feel like I am going to do a rant video and get myself in trouble because you know what? This is crazy talk. And I may have to put it on, I may have to make a Threads account and put it on Threads and tag Zuckerberg. 581, disrespected. You know what? If I get the chance to take Meta in the second round, I'm taking her. Reddit, 170. I don't hate that. Yes, I could have got out at 180, but I didn't. I wrote cover calls. It's all good. Verizon, 4563. Amazon, 240. Get out of here. What do you... Wusa. I don't even know what to say. I have to channel my inner bad boys too for this one. Amazon at 240 and Microsoft at 385 and Meta at 581. This market hates profitability. And then you got Salesforce, 158.90. I'm sorry, I'm doing it. Do not follow me. Okay? Do not follow me on this. This is bullshit. I have to dollar cost average at this price. Under 160, what are we doing? Look, this could legitimately go down lower. So once again, I'm a dumbass. Do not follow me on this. I mean, okay. I get it. Money's got to come from somewhere. People are selling this shit off. That's fine. All right, let's see how much capital I have laying around. And hold on. Steve needs a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Steve needs a moment. I don't normally do this, but you know what? I kind of don't have a choice at this point. All right. Okay, one market order just went in. I feel like I need to buy it in another account, so hold on. This is batshit crazy. This is legitimately batshit crazy. Maybe I'm crazy. This is nuts. 158. Who do these people think they are? 158. What are we doing? Like, really, what are we doing? All right. I bought more Salesforce. And I'm going to run it up in another account. I'm going to buy some more in another account. So the give you guys a sneak peek, the dividend harvesting series that I do every week for Seeking Alpha. And I know I owe you guys a video for the dividend farming series, which I started on YouTube. I just don't have enough time in the day, everybody. I apologize. I thought I was going to be less busy quitting my job. I feel like I'm busier, which is kind of wild. It is what it is. But I will get those videos made. I promise you. I will get those videos made. All right. I just got to move some money. Give me a sec. This one. Okay. All right. I'll be done with my bullshit in a minute. CRM. Bye. Okay. Look, I don't want anybody to think I bought a crazy amount. Obviously, a crazy amount is subjective to each person's situation. I bought more Salesforce in 2 accounts. It is definitely not a crazy amount, and it is not a large percentage of my portfolio, but I believe that this is mispriced. And if this keeps going down, I'm going to have to seriously consider making this like a cornerstone position, because I do believe this is Cisco from last year. I really do. Tell me about, we're in the age of AI agents, and I am getting busier. Moving money from savings to checkings? No. Moving money out of the bank into a brokerage. Yes. I feel like I have to do the rant video because this is absolutely crazy. Who does the market think it is? And I know the market's right at the moment, but let's call a spade a spade. NVIDIA's at 206.52. Like, really? Really? Maybe this is all front-running Warsh and people are worried about what he's going to say. I'm going to get into my thoughts about that, but this is getting absolutely hysterical. Service now 199. There's so much disrespect in this market. Shit, I forgot to buy TKO. I was supposed to buy TKO today for the dividend farming portfolio, and I freaking forgot to because I just bought more Salesforce. TKO may have to be a next week thing. Where's TKO at? I don't even have it on the watch list. Why am I so lost? Let's throw TKO on the watch list. And the crazy part is this is a dividend play. All right. TKO, where are you? Okay, TKO is down today. I'm not missing out on anything at the moment. Not missing out on anything, but I will be adding TKO at some point. SoFi 1859, ladies and gentlemen. I likey. I likey. I love how so many people were making fun of Noto's buys. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you have. 250 grand is a real amount of money. Let's not take that lightly. This guy has put in over $2 million of his cash this year. Why am I not bullish Hood? It's not that I'm not bullish Hood. I'm just not. I don't know. I think Hood's a great company. I just think the valuation doesn't make sense to me. SoFi makes more sense. I'd rather look. Obviously, I got the privilege to meet Vlad and I got the privilege to meet Noto. I think both are great companies. I think both are great CEOs. I think they're both building great products. And I think Robinhood right now is benefiting from trading. They're benefiting from options. They may be number one over the next year in agentic brokerages. There's a lot to look forward to. There's no question about it. You're not going to hear me disrespect Hood, okay? I just don't want to be a shareholder at these prices. I think SoFi is super undervalued. I have a long-term thesis on interest rates. I have a long-term thesis on what SoFi can accomplish. And I have a stake in the grounds. I think it's being disrespected. And you know what? I'm not just going to jump on the Hood bandwagon because it gets over 100. Hood did not fall to the point where I thought it was interesting for me to get in. A lot of people made money on it, and I'm happy for everybody. I think we're going to have the same opportunity with SoFi. I really do. War Dude, thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. Do you think SoFi is still a buy right now, even though it's been on a run the past few days, if you're holding long term? Look, I can't tell you if SoFi is a buy or not. What I can tell you is I have a large position relative to the dollar amount of my portfolio in SoFi. I would not have a disproportionate position in SoFi if I didn't personally believe in it. Now, my situation is different than everybody else's situation, okay? I expect everything. Look, here's the reality. Here's the brutal truth, okay? Every dollar that I put into the stock market, I expect to lose. I have lost money in the stock market before. I don't bat 1,000. Nobody does. And I'm more than willing to talk about my losses because I've had significant losses in the past. I think everybody does. Everybody experiences that. I don't care how good of a trader you are, how good of an investor you are. Everybody has losses. I mean, people want to talk about Berkshire and Buffett. Look at Kraft Heinz, an absolute loser. Everybody's got them, okay? Everybody's got them. Now, when it comes to me, every dollar that I put in the market that is not allocated to an S&P 500 index fund, I understand that that investment can go to zero. And while it would suck if those investments go to zero, I've done the due diligence and I am comfortable with my risk appetite for the capital I've allocated. So I know it's a long-winded answer, but for me, I really like SoFi. Up 4.6%. I mean, look, if you believe that if you're going to hold it for several years, okay? And if you think rates are going to come down and they're going to grow and all these things are going to happen, look at the chart. Look at the chart. If we say that this was fake, okay, if we say that this was fake and we were to get rid of this and we got a little blip here, it wouldn't be a horrible rebound. The problem is it got to 32.73 and then fell, and everybody's like, well, this is a shitty stock or shitty investment. I don't believe that's the case. So this isn't a trade. For me, this is a long-term position, so I'm fine holding it. That's all I can say about SoFi. That's all I can say. What percentage of my portfolio is stocks compared to S&P 500 index? I have no idea. No idea. If I had to take a guess, doing rough math, and listen, I don't know. I've never made a spreadsheet with every individual position on it. I've never gone that crazy. It's just too much work. I'd say 40 to 50. Let's do this. 50 to 60% when you include all stocks, whether they're in traditional brokerages or retirement accounts, okay? I would be comfortable saying 60% is in an S&P 500 index fund. 60%. Maybe 55. But that area. And keep in mind, that's why I can say I don't give a fuck and I mean it. For those of you that have followed Amit for a long time, and during Liberation Day, when you saw me come on and say I don't care, I legitimately meant it, because you know what? It wasn't impacting me a lot. It did not impact me. So that's not a style of investing for everybody. Some people like to swing for the fences with everything, and that's fine. I don't fault anybody for that. I know what my threshold is, and I know that I want to be able to sleep well. And for me to sleep well is, you know what? I know that I can't pick every winner and trade in and out of everything perfectly. And the S&P 500 is a hedge against myself. And I know that if I blow up every individual investment that I make, I'm still going to be fine. So that's my methodology, period. That's my methodology. Uber, I got to see this. We're cutting over. What the hell did they just do? What did Uber just do? Hold on. Why do I have stuff going on another screen? Too much, ladies and gentlemen. I got too much going on. All right. Do.
Uber taking aim at Tesla and Waymo with its newest robo-taxi expansion. Mackenzie Sagalos has that story for us. Mackenzie.
Hey, good morning, David. So Uber shares lowered this morning after the company said it will bring its own robo-taxi service to Houston, a launch that would put Uber up against Waymo and Tesla in one of the only U.S. markets where all three will be competing. Now, commercial service is slated for next year, but testing is already underway with Lucid supplying the vehicles and Nuro providing the self-driving tech. It's the latest sign of how dramatically Uber has reversed course on autonomous vehicles. 6 years ago, CEO Dara Khosrowshahi sold off Uber's in-house self-driving unit. Now, Uber is said to be spending more than $10 billion to re-enter the market through partnerships like this one. Uber's invested hundreds of millions into Lucid and Nuro and expanded its purchase commitment with Lucid to at least 35,000 robo-taxis. But that is just one piece of a much broader AV partner web, from Rivian and NVIDIA to autonomy companies in China, as Uber really tries to bring more vehicles and self-driving systems onto its network. Now, the overarching goal here is to keep Uber from getting cut out of the autonomous stack, especially as Waymo and Tesla increasingly push their own apps and direct-to-consumer networks. The challenge is that this is not the asset-light Uber that investors are used to. Massive charging depots, first-party fleet ownership, and equity stakes make this a much more capital-intensive business with a messier balance sheet and more margin pressure, and that is part of why the stock has been selling off with $60 billion in market cap erased since October. The Uber CEO really earned credibility with Wall Street by getting the company to profitability. Now he has to show that Uber's AV investments can defend its core ride-hailing business without undermining the financial discipline that investors have really come to expect of Uber. Guys?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Mackenzie. I mean, they are competing now because they also had a relationship with Waymo, as you pointed out, with so many others. But now they're really competitors, aren't they?
They are. I mean, you look at Waymo, it was just a couple of days ago that they launched the equivalent to Uber One and Lyft Pink. They haven't launched in a new market with Uber in a couple of years now. So they're just their partner in Atlanta and Austin primarily. And so as we see Uber scale, it's got that partnership with NVIDIA. They plan to open in 28 different cities, 2 of those cities in California coming online in the first half of 27 if their plans work out. And what's also interesting about the Uber model is this idea of being vehicle agnostic, of being agnostic on the software as well. So that partnership with NVIDIA is actually an open stack. So they can bring in tech from Nuro or from other players. And it's really fascinating to see how they're trying to play the field here in AV.
Yeah. Mackenzie, thank you. Mackenzie Sagalos.
Still to come on the show, how millions of Americans could have exposure to SpaceX without buying a single share.
There's nothing to explain. It's going to be in the NASDAQ 100 and the Russell. Like, come on. Nothing to explain. All right, Uber. You guys know I'm bullish. I think they take the fight to everybody, and I think that they win. I think there can be more than one winner. All right, I can't put an 85-inch TV 1 foot away from my face. Like, come on. Can't do that. I do need to build my new desk, which will allow me some more room so I can go get 2 more monitors. So I am considering, so I use a 49-inch curved. I use the Samsung Odyssey G9. I am thinking about getting a second one and putting it right above it so I have 2 stacked. And then I'm thinking about getting another screen and putting it vertical. I'm a nerd. What can I say? Anyway, I think Uber can win. Melanie, what's going on? I think that they have the platform, and that's been my investment case on Uber, is that people aren't going to leave that app. They got too many things on it. And I know Trump is going to speak soon. We will watch it together. And I do want to go over a bunch of things about the Fed meeting. Maybe I'll join him. Maybe I'll call him and join him. We'll see. I know he's going to come back on 2:15. I wanted to go to the sports card shop also. I got to tell you, I did pretty well yesterday. The past couple of days, I'm back. I went 4 for 5 on the UFC. I went 3 for 3 yesterday. I bet the Phillies money line, the Yankees run line, and parlay with the 2. Today I took what did I take today? I took the Yankees, the Phillies, and the Dodgers, and I took them all in a parlay. So I'm back. I am back. Bobby Witt Jr., great player. Great player. So what does everybody think? Does everybody think Warsh is going to be dovish today? Oil's under 80. I can't see him being a super hawk. I do have Khabib over Mighty Mouse, even though Mighty Mouse has one of the best finishes I've ever seen in my life, but neither of them are on Mount Rushmore. Neither of them are on Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore, John Jones, Fedor, GSP, probably Anderson Silva. I mean, I think I got to go with that as Mount Rushmore. I wonder what Trump is going to say. I mean, I did not like what Trump said this morning. I mean, he basically said the MOU is not final, and if I don't like the agreement, we'll go back to dropping bombs. Like, at this point, he's just going to bully a deal through. I am not happy about that. You got to respect Anderson Silva demolishing the entire middleweight division for years. Got to respect that. How do I factor PEDs on the list? I mean, look, I don't know how many people, but you have to think a lot of people were on them. So I'm not factoring it in. I also don't think Fedor ever did anything. I think the question's more John Jones for you guys. And I think that you put John Jones in a room with any person that's ever fought ever in the history of the human race, he walks out. That's my own feeling. That's my own feeling. I think John Jones walks out that door every time in his prime. I don't think there's a single man on earth that can beat him in a fight. That's my own opinion. You look at what he did to DC when DC said he was at his best. You look at what he's done to every single person he stepped in there with. The only person that gave him a hard time was Gustafsson, and Jones didn't even train. You listen to those stories from people who were around. Dude was at the club doing a little sniffy and didn't even train, went in there and still won. So, I mean, he's the greatest. Anyway, we got Warsh in a little bit. We got Trump speaking. Trump better not screw us over. I'm not going to be happy if he does that. And at least I think we get a Fed share today that is dovish. I really want to hold off on going through my analysis because this press conference could start at any moment. And they're probably waiting till noon to start. So we'll see. Yeah, and that's the other thing with Fedor. Like, when you think about Fedor, he beat everybody in their own style. It's not just his win record or that he was unstoppable as a heavyweight. He fought Nogueira when Nogueira was Nogueira, and he beat him up on the ground. He stood with Crow Cop. You're talking about one of the most elite strikers ever in MMA at his prime, K1 Grand Prix champion, and he stood with Crow Cop and beat him. So, I mean, come on. AT&T is down to 22.42. Jesus Christ. Hell's going on with AT&T? I think people are worried about SpaceX with Starlink really direct to sell. I really think that that's happening. I actually had a conversation with somebody yesterday about doing a sport channel. All right, Trump is live. We're going to go to it.
We had a great event. This was something very special. And I want to thank President Macron and Bridget, his really lovely wife, fantastic person, for welcoming us to France for an extremely successful G7 summit. I would say it's one of the most successful. And this meeting could not have come at a better time. On Sunday, we reached an agreement with Iran that achieves everything we set out to accomplish, everything and much more. Ending the current conflict, reopening the Strait of Hormuz, and preventing Iran from ever obtaining a nuclear weapon. That's what it was all about. That was about 99%. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. They can't develop it, buy it. They can never have a nuclear weapon. At the same time, with this announcement, or close to it, as people started to think it was going to happen when Iran was making some very positive statements, the stock market has surged to record highs, picking up thousands of points over the last short period of time, thousands of points. And oil is dropping like it has never dropped before, at levels that went in numbers down $7, down $8. They've never seen anything like that. But if we didn't do this deal, we could have dropped more bombs for another 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 years. You would never have the Hormuz Strait open. You would never have success. Your market would have, instead of going up at levels that nobody's ever seen before, would go down at levels that nobody ever saw before, maybe except for 1929 or whatever. And, you know, all the tough guys don't realize that this wasn't a 3-month deal. This was years in the making. You know why? Because I was the one that killed General Soleimani. And if I didn't kill General Soleimani, we probably wouldn't be talking right now about this deal, because he was a mad genius. They never were able to replace him. But a lot of people forget that. The tough guys, you know, the tough guys that would drive the country right down the tubes. The past 2 days have provided a chance to discuss the details of this historic agreement with many of our closest friends and allies, including the G7 nations and many presidents and prime ministers. As you saw, Prime Minister Modi was here. We had a long talk. He's a great guy. They are thrilled that we made a deal, every one of them. There's not one nation that came to us and said, please, sir, keep dropping bombs on them. Please keep dropping bombs. The stupid people say that. But I'm thrilled to report, and by the way, those last 2 days were brutal. $200 million worth of bombs. And, you know, it is expensive too, by the way, aside from everything else. And they knew I was coming for a third night. We informed them we're coming for a third night. They didn't have their Navy, it's sunk. They didn't have their Air Force, it's gone, not one plane. They didn't have anti-aircraft equipment, so we got free reign. They didn't have their leaders, but they have a new group of leaders that I think is, actually, I think they're smarter. I think they're very smart. I think they're far less radicalized, and I think they're really good. They love their country. You know, you talk about regime change, nobody will say that, but I guess that's, look, one set of leaders is all gone. Their second set of leaders is all gone. Their third set of leaders a little bit gone, but for the most part, and frankly, I think that's regime change. I think they're going to behave much differently. I think they see a different way of life that they were never exposed to. So the one thing I didn't want to see is I didn't want to see economic catastrophe. If you kept this going, that could have happened. But all I know is every time we talked about the possibility of peace, the stock market shot up like a rocket ship. It never went down. They didn't like it. The people, the stock market is more brilliant than anybody there is, including the people on the stage, other than me, of course. Let's see. I don't know. What do you think, Scott? Is the stock market more brilliant than you?
No, sir.
Oh, that's a terrible statement. All right. The stock market is quite brilliant. And every time we said something amazing, like we're going to settle, it would go up. And every time we said something negative, like, guess what? We're not going to be able to settle, it would go down very big, Peter. Right? Very, very big. Tells you something. And I've studied presidents, some good, some bad, some great. Not too many are great. And some really bad. We had one just recently. And the one president I did not want to be was the late, great Herbert Hoover. I didn't want that. And who knows what would have happened. But bad things happen. So the past 2 days have provided a chance to discuss the details of the deal with the closest friends and allies, the heads of countries. They were all here, a lot of them. Far more than the 7, as you know, a lot of them. And they put out a statement. I think President Macron, who did a great job, by the way, did a really fan, him and Bridget, they did a great job. But they all put out statements saying they love this deal because they want to see it over. And they love the fact that the hormones, don't forget, if we were going to drop bombs, let's say we went another month, another 2-3 months, maybe weeks, could be another 3 months, could be whatever. What do you have left? Got maybe nothing, but you don't have, the strait will never be open because people that own billion-dollar ships, these ships cost $1 billion. They don't like sailing ships or having their ships participate when you go up the coast and you go through the strait and there are rockets flying over your head. They want to protect their $1 billion investment. You wouldn't have oil for maybe years. These are stupid people. But nobody was tougher than me. Nobody hit Soleimani. When I hit Soleimani, people thought that was the biggest thing to happen in the Middle East for 50 years. That was the biggest event. He was the boss of Iran and respected, but he was a mad genius. He was a genius, the father of the roadside bomb. When you see young men, and in some cases women, mostly men, walking around without legs, without arms, with a face that's been blown to smithereens, it's Soleimani, 95%, 96.2 they say or something, 95%. That was Soleimani did it. Happened to come from Iran, and I blew him up. You remember that? I blew him up in the Valley of Death. He got off his plane and we followed him. And in all fairness, because they've been wonderful to me, Israel, but they didn't want to do that attack. They were all set the night before the attack then for me. They didn't want to do it, so I had to make a decision. I made the decision to do it. But it was a joint venture, as we say in the real estate business. That was a joint venture between Israel and us. We studied it for a month. We knew what plane he was going to be on almost a month before. He only traveled on commercial airliners, big ones with lots of people, because he knew we wouldn't shoot him down. He's very smart. But we knew he was going to be on that plane, followed him, and then Israel informed me that they won't do it. And I had to make a decision. I had some very good generals, and not the ones you see on television, very good. And I want to thank also Pete Hegseth and General Raisin Kane, who's phenomenal. Okay, these guys are phenomenal. They can't be better. But I had some good generals, and I said to him, well, if Israel's not going to do it, we're all prepared. Do we do it? Do you like doing it or not? He said, sure. If you want to do it, we can do it. How well? We'll do it just as well or better. Do it ourselves. We don't need anybody. So we took out Soleimani. One of the biggest events to happen the Middle East, maybe ever, but they say 50 years, they say 100 years. I was with the Prime Minister of Pakistan. He said it's maybe the biggest event that has ever taken place in his life. Nobody could believe it. So that's when it started. It didn't start like 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago. And Obama wouldn't do it. What Obama did was he did the JCPOA. He loaded up a plane with $1,700,000,000 in green cash from banks all over Washington, Maryland, and Virginia. They were stripped of all their cash. They had no cash to do payrolls. It all went into a Boeing 757, a wonderful plane, and they flew it to Iran. And they gave it out to people. They bribed people. They thought they were going to get it done. Then they gave billions and billions of dollars after that. And they got a deal that was a road to a nuclear weapon. I get so angry, I guess. I'm allowed to get angry when I watch the Democrats. They talk about it all the time. We had this deal done. You had a deal that was going to give them legally a nuclear weapon. And if that happened, Israel would have been blown away. And in all fairness to Bibi Netanyahu, who happens to be a good man, gets a little excited sometimes. But he happens to be a very good man. We've had an amazing partnership. He's been an amazing prime minister. We have a little dispute over Lebanon. I say, you can do a little softer touch, Bibi. You don't have to knock down a building every time somebody walks into it that's from Hezbollah. But it's been an amazing partnership. But he will say, we're the big partner, and he's the very small partner, and that's true. So he came to the country, and he begged Barack Hussein Obama, the president, not to do the JCPOA. He said it could be the end of Israel, and it would have been if I didn't come along. And Obama didn't listen to him. Bibi actually went to Congress and pleaded with them, and he got nowhere. And they had this horrible deal that was horrible for Israel. And that's where it stood. And then I came along and I terminated that deal. It had very little time left. It was a short-term deal. With countries, you need hundreds of years. You don't need 8 years and 9 years. This isn't like you're signing a lease on a candy store in the corner. You need hundreds of years. This was a short-term lease. It expired long ago. Had I let it run, it expired. You wouldn't have been around. A lot of people wouldn't have been around. But Israel would have been terminated. I think the whole Middle East would have been terminated. You saw that when everybody was shocked that all these missiles, they were aimed at these different places. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE. Think of it. Bahrain, Kuwait. They got hit. Nobody thought that was, even I didn't think it was going to happen. They didn't think it was going to happen. They were going to take out the entire Middle East, including Israel. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it within moments after getting it. So I made it very tough for them when I terminated the Barack Hussein Obama catastrophe. JCPOA, one of the worst deals. NAFTA might have been worse, but that was worse economically. This deal was really dangerous, what he did. He gave them everything, including a lot of money, which we don't give them, by the way, just in case you have any question. We'll be giving this out so you can read it and you can see. And it's a memorandum of understanding. If it doesn't get done in 60 days, that's all right. We go back to bombing. I don't want to do that because it's so good. But we might have to, because we're never going to let them have a nuclear weapon. But they've agreed not to, and you'll see that very clearly in the agreement. But then the second phase of that was they were building, or they were enriching material, as they say. I call it nuclear dust. They were enriching material under granite mountains. Granite being, for those not in the construction business, granite being the strongest stone. It's not as pretty as marble, but it's much stronger. It's a lot stronger. Like the new granite I put on the stairs of the White House going to the Oval Office, the black granite, it's rated 1 million years plus. No marble's rated that. Marble's rated 100 years if it's outside. So these are granite mountains. And the B-2s came along and they hit those air shafts in the dark at 1 o'clock in the morning with no moon. They had a beam going right up everywhere. Those guys did a job, and then they were criticized by certain members of the press, like CNN, for possibly not doing that much damage. And it turned out that the damage was far greater. Those mountains collapsed right on top of everything. Nobody's going to get that for a long time unless we want to get it. We'll get it. But we're the only ones that can. And they say China has the equipment to get it, and we have the equipment to get it. And it's actually not valuable, not a lot of value, but we'd like to get it psychologically, but nobody's touching it. We also have cameras. That's what Space Force is. We have the greatest military in the world, by the way. But I'm proud of Space Force because I started it. We have Space Force cameras on every single door, well, there are no doors. They've been pretty well shattered, but every area of that, if somebody walks in and he's got a badge with his name on it, like Mohammed something, which is about a 50-50 guess, Mohammed something, they can tell the name, they can give you a serial number, we can see things you wouldn't believe the quality of the stuff that we have. That's why we've been so successful. That's why our blockade will go down in the annals of history as being unbelievable. Nobody's ever seen a blockade like that. It's like a steel wall. So what happened is we then terminated that, and I call it the nuclear dust, and that was the end of that. But if we didn't hit that with the B-2 bombers, or if it wasn't successful, they would have had a nuclear weapon, a nuclear bomb at a very high level, not the highest, but it would have been a very high level. We have much bigger. But we hope that we're never going to have to use it. We have the most. Russia has second. China is very far behind, but going to catch up, unfortunately. You know, they're catching up. But we have the most. We have the most powerful. But we also have the most. But Russia's not far behind. And then you have China in third place, but within 5 years, they'll be probably even. And we ought to make a denuclearization deal. It would be so great. We don't need all of that. We don't need to be able to blow up the whole world 300 times over. It's terrible. Really, if we could do a denuke deal, I'd love it. And one of those two is very willing to do it, I will tell you. But the other one is less willing to do it. And you need all of them. So the deal we reached with Iran on Sunday will be signed shortly. Tomorrow, maybe the next day. Subject deals. My whole life is all about deals. That's all I ever did is make deals. And crazy things happen with deals. I've gone into deals where it's a guarantee. No way it can not be signed. And it doesn't get signed. And I've gone into deals that you have no chance of making, and they go like nothing. So, but we're going to most likely sign a deal. They want to sign a deal. And they've been acting very appropriately. They took a big 2 hits last week. Those were 2 very big hits. So importantly, Iran has agreed that they will neither produce nor procure a nuclear weapon, neither produce, because originally they said, they talk about that they will not develop a nuclear weapon. And some people found it okay. These guys didn't, in all fairness, but some people, but I didn't like it. Said it won't develop. I said, what happens if they should buy? I don't know. It's very dangerous for somebody to sell, because whoever sells them a nuclear weapon will get nuked themselves. If they sold a nuclear weapon, only a few that could do it, they would be nuked. They wouldn't have that country long. So it's a very dangerous thing for somebody to do. But I wanted it in there. So it's develop, procure, buy, anything. And you'll see that when you see the agreement, but it's appropriate that we release the agreement. And we did send a copy to Israel, by the way. They've been a good partner. Again, I think they could do better with respect to Hezbollah. I'm not saying they shouldn't protect themselves. I'm saying when 2 drones are shot into the desert and drop harmlessly, you don't have to knock down buildings in Beirut. They could behave better. And frankly, they could do a better job. I love them as a partner. They were terrific, but they could do a much better job with Hezbollah. On that, I don't think they're doing well. And I feel very bad for Lebanon. Lebanon's been, it was a great culture. They had the professors, the doctors, the lawyers. It was an incredible culture, maybe the highest in the Middle East for years and years, centuries. And for the last 50, 60 years, they have been just trashed. They have been living in hell. So they'll work closely with us to turn over the so-called enriched material that's very deep in the bowels of the earth, very deep. Nobody can get it. So it's not important that we do it quickly, but we could do it fairly quickly. When we have a chance, we'll do it. But in the meantime, we have cameras on every inch of it. Nobody can do it. And if they do, we'll hit them with Patriots. That's all. And they'll be gone. And they know that. Technical discussions on the removal of all stockpiles of enriched materials will begin immediately. We're going to start that immediately. And unlike Barack Hussein Obama, who sent Iran pallets of cash and any relief they receive under this deal, they'll have to get based on merit. And it won't be from us. We don't have to give them anything. But some people may want to invest. Like, what are you going to do? Say you can never, ever invest in a country? I mean, it's pretty tough. I don't mind being tough, but it's pretty crazy. You can invest in a country. You can invest in any country you want, but you can't invest there. Well, they need investment because we did $1.5 trillion, maybe $2 trillion worth of damage. So somebody's going to have to help them out. There's no guarantee about helping them out. And could be their neighbors will help them out a little bit. I don't know. But it's a lot of money. Almost nobody has that kind of money. That's the kind of damage that was done. But we're not investing any money. There was a fake story. There was a fake news story that got a man, a person, a good person. JD made a statement. It was a perfect statement. And they reported it in a very strange way. But that's why it's fake news, I guess. So we don't give them money. We don't give them any of that. And what happens is with time, if they behave, if they be a citizen of the world, a reasonable citizen of the world. And I think this group, again, I didn't do this for regime change, but I think this group is regime change. I mean, hey, the first group is dead. One little morning, having breakfast, the whole group, they thought they'd never be caught because we never bombed during breakfast, but we bombed. And they all, 88 people. And I'm not proud of it at all. But the second group came in and they were very unreasonable too. And they were all gone. They were all gone. And then the third group, we've been dealing with them. Couple left this planet, but we've been dealing with them. And again, they've been fine. I mean, I've had a lot easier. I've had some easier ones. They're tough, they're smart. Maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has already increased very substantially, and the normal flow of energy will resume in the coming days, and trillions of dollars will be made by the world, and the stock market will, I believe, continue to rise. The only difference is that a player that's very volatile, very tough, very smart, frankly, they have, in one way, a primitive culture, but it's also a genius primitive culture. They're very smart people, very good negotiators, but so are we. So rather than possibly going into a depression, rather than having your favorite president be Herbert Hoover, I was always the one I didn't want to be. I wouldn't have preferred Nixon. I wouldn't have preferred, there are plenty I wouldn't prefer, but the one I always thought of, Herbert Hoover, and he caused it. He raised taxes too fast and he raised interest rates too fast, all at the same time. And it caused the Great Depression. So I don't think I'll make mistakes like that. I lower taxes, I don't raise taxes. In fact, we just gave you the largest tax decrease, largest tax cut in the history of our country. So we'll be working on a parallel effort with the Gulf nations to address non-nuclear issues, such as the conventional ballistic missiles, which we'll be talking about, and support. I mean, they have to have some because other people have some. You got to have some. Somebody said, you shouldn't give them one. And I have guys, I like some of these guys, but I don't think they're smart. Sir, you shouldn't let them have any missile. I said, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to let Saudi Arabia have missiles, but they can't have them? Yes, sir. Doesn't work that way, It doesn't work that way. And missiles aren't the problem. Missiles they hurt a little location, but they don't blow up the planet. So the Gulf nations will address the non-nuclear issues. As we'll be talking about the ballistic missiles, and we'll talk also about the terrorist proxies that they have, that we don't want that to happen. But I want to thank our partners in both Pakistan and Qatar. These people work so hard. and they knew him a little bit. In the case of Pakistan, quite well. In the case of Qatar, they were sort of at odds. And, Qatar was great because they had right next door. When I flew from there, from that location to Saudi Arabia, I'd fly for 40 minutes, and I'd fly to UAE for 40 minutes to great leaders there, by the way. Case of Saudi Arabia, the father's still alive, and he's fantastic, and the son is going to be great. He's going to be great. The Crown Prince and Mohammed at UAE is an incredible warrior. He was dropping bombs. Last week I said, who the hell's dropping all those bombs? It was UAE. He's a good fighter, Mohammed. But every administration for decades has sought to get Iran to relinquish its nuclear ambitions, but the threat only got bigger. The words got bigger and bigger and stronger and bigger, and nothing ever happened. And Iran got stronger and tougher. If we didn't blow them up the first time and then blow out those weapons, they would have been unstoppable. This should have done what I'm doing, and what I did should have been done years ago. Would have been much easier, much less firepower, but it wasn't. And again, I want to thank all those countries, and I want to thank Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. So obviously the breakthrough would not have been possible without the unprecedented pressure the United States put on the regime over the past year and a half. But again, it started a long time ago. It started with the death of Soleimani. That was a big deal. No president in history has ever been tougher on Iran than I have, and they know that. And by the way, if they don't honor the agreement, or some things aren't even mentioned in the agreement, it's a memorandum of understanding, but we have an understanding of certain things without writing it. And if they don't honor that, we'll probably go back to bombing them until they honor it. It's amazing what bombs can do. So I say it, the Obama deal was a road to a nuclear weapon, and let's call it the Trump deal was a wall for a nuclear weapon that the nuclear weapon could not get through. Nobody's going to get through it. We built a wall. They weren't going to have it, and that's what we have right now. And it says very clearly, the most important clause to me, too, number one, the Strait opens, but that's much less important than the other clause. Clause number whatever, 5, 8, is a very strong statement that they will never have a nuclear weapon. And it doesn't say they'll have one in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. With Obama, they were able to enrich very quickly. This agreement now provides Iran with a historic opportunity. If they follow the path of cooperation, will have opened for them, their country will have a chance to survive. Now think of it, they have 91 million people. People want me to bomb the bridges. Why don't I bomb? I already did, because, they went back on one of their promises, and I bombed their biggest bridge, the equivalent of that was the George Washington Bridge of Iran. But we bombed that bridge, you saw that. One quick strike by an F-22, the most beautiful fighter jet ever made, by the way. In fact, we're ordering some more of them. We're bringing it out because it's so effective. It's incredible. It's incredible. Well, look, we have the greatest military in the world. Those B-2 bombers are unbelievable. Who would have thought they could handle, each had 2 because the flight was so long, but they handle 3 of the biggest, heaviest bombs, hundreds of thousands of pounds, and they handle them like they're nothing. It's amazing. And also, they're undetectable. They flew into Iran, totally, think of it, totally undetected. Now, Iran's waiting for them. They're waiting for them. And they never saw them. 1 o'clock in the morning, they never saw them. They're stealth. And we just ordered 22 more. The newer, upgraded version, which I guess is better. I don't know how the hell you get better. But as I expressed to the world leaders here this week, it's my hope that the peace agreement will be the beginning of a much larger deal all across the Middle East. We're very close. Look at the job we've done on Gaza. Look at Hamas. Hamas has been very silent. You haven't read anything about Hamas. And we're trying to get them unarmed. They grew up with a machine gun in their hand. I think they actually, when they were born, they came out with a machine gun in their hand. So it's not the easiest thing, but they've actually, behaved pretty well, considering this was not the lifestyle that they were taught to have. but including an end to all Iranian aggression. There's not going to be Iranian aggression, and an end to war and terror in Lebanon. So the Lebanon piece is something we'll have to work on a little bit. It's a very small piece of the puzzle, actually, but it still makes a lot of noise. The big deal is the Iran deal. That's where the money is, where the power was. But they have Hezbollah, and you got to get that done one way or the other. We'll do it. I think Israel can do a much better job on it. Syria would love to do it. I was very responsible for the gentleman at Syria that's now the president of Syria. He's done a tremendous job. He's put that country together in a year and a half. Sort of like our country, a year and a half. It's pretty similar size. They said, please don't put him there. He's a very violent man. Al-Qaeda. I said, well, I know one thing, a Boy Scout's not going to work. And he's actually done a very good job. He'd love to go in it. You know, Hezbollah is an enemy of his, and he'd go in, but he wouldn't knock down buildings every time he hears there's somebody. He'd just go and get them with precision. But I don't know that people want that. Maybe they don't. Maybe Lebanon doesn't. We have to be guided a little bit by Lebanon. And by the way, the president is going to be coming, Prime Minister, President, going to be coming over to see us very shortly, over the next week or two. Good man. He's, man is living. What a tough life he's got, because he's got tough groups of people. And it's amazing. Amazing there is a Lebanon with all they've been through. They have been treated worse than just about, I think, anybody. Disrespected incredibly. So the expansion of the Abraham Accords is the other thing that we hope we're going to get. And I think Saudi Arabia, if they lead the way, they'd be doing themselves a big favor, because everybody that's in it, UAE went in right from the beginning. Again, he's a warrior. And they never got out. Nobody ever got out. You think maybe during the war, they were all everybody was afraid of Iran. And that's why we ended up with the original members. But then when the election was rigged, that's right. And I wasn't here at all. Nobody cared about anything. The country went to hell in every way. That was the least of it. Middle East was the least of the country went to hell, allowing 25 million people into the country, unchecked and unvetted, many of them criminals, many of them murderers, 11,888 murderers allowed into our country. So this was the least of it. But the past 2 days have also provided an opportunity to discuss a number of other key issues with members of the G7 and our partners. Yesterday morning, we had a productive conversation on the war in Ukraine. I spoke with President Putin. I spoke with President Zelensky, and he was there. And President Putin, I spoke over the phone with. And something's going to happen. They're losing a lot of people, a lot of soldiers are losing soldiers. Both are losing a lot. Russia's losing more because they're the offensive ones. And when you're offensive in war, you lose more. Pretty simple. But I provided an update on my call Sunday with President Putin and expressed my continued hope. We had a very good conversation with President Putin and a very, very good conversation with President Zelensky. I think they both want to do something. They just don't know how to do it. They want to do it. They just don't know how. In our session yesterday afternoon on international partnerships, I offered an update on how the United States is leading the world in responding to the Ebola outbreak in Africa, sending $375 million in aid so far to help stop and contain the crisis at its source. And we've done great. I was with the president of a couple of presidents came over, by the way, from African nations, and they were so happy with what we did. But where it's unfair is we gave $375 million. The rest of the world gave essentially nothing, maybe a couple of bucks, but nothing. And they were all saying, thank you so much. And I think they've done a good job. It's a terrible thing. Ebola is a terrible thing. That's an unbelievable one. Fortunately, it's not like COVID where it's that easy to spread around, but it's rough. And we've done a good job. We've moved people to certain quarantine, certain locations. But today we also had excellent meetings on the economy and artificial intelligence, which is amazing what's going on with that. It's going to be the biggest thing ever. We have to be very careful with it. It's both great and could be bad. We have to be careful with it. But we're leading China. We're leading the world on that. We're allowing them to do their own electric plants because they need, as an example, those buildings are so big. And they're not taking the community's electricity. I gave them the right. It's my idea. I gave them the right to build electric plants like Con Edison in New York. Dig we must. And they've come up with plants that nobody's ever seen anything like them. Those are by very high IQ people. So they're actually building electric plants. So because otherwise they could never build a building because the grid is old and tired and broken and a mess. So they're building it and they're going to sell very cheaply, they're going to sell their extra electricity into the grid. So we take care of a lot of things like California, which doesn't have nearly enough electricity. They don't know what they're doing there. And instead of having blackouts and brownouts, they'll be able not to. We found a great deal of unity here at the G7, and we signed a declaration on illegal immigration, the first time ever for a G7 statement. They did a beautiful statement. We signed other agreements to step up and to really coordinate and spend a lot of time coordinating drug trafficking and the stopping of drug trafficking, which is crazy. It comes through Mexico, comes through the southern border, the little that comes through. They find a way, they put it, they're genius. If they would use that genius for good, they'd be very rich people. They have it in engines, they have it in hubcaps, they have it in areas you wouldn't even believe. They have it in the structures of cars. Most incredible thing. But we've done a great job on it. We have drugs coming through the border are down 61%. Drugs coming through water, the sea, ocean, sea, Gulf, down 97.2%. That's the ones that get hit. Just like we hit the Iranian minesweepers and mine droppers, they call them. They dropped. Who would have 28 mine droppers? Who has 28 mine droppers? They actually had them, but they don't have them anymore. We hit them just like we hit the drug dealers. But drugs are down by water 97%, and over 60% they're down. And now we're going to go and focus on the land. They come through Mexico. Mexico has lost control of their country. The cartels run Mexico, and it's sad. And the president's a very good woman, but she's a very scared woman. The drug cartels are totally running Mexico. It's not even close. We agreed to accelerate our efforts to secure our critical minerals and rare earth supply chains, where we have great companies really going to town. We're going to give everybody a big run because we do it better and we had to get motivated. The G7 also agreed that the United States' new approach to international development based on the private sector investment is working at levels that they never thought possible. It's really working. I held a number of very positive bilateral meetings, including with the president of France. It was a very good meeting, actually. The Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim, was, I tell you, I wish I could really know the guy. You know, some people say, well, he lived in that neighborhood. You can't be saying things that you'd like to have him say. He was fantastic on this, and he's been a fantastic guy in terms of energy and getting energy out there. President of the United Arab Emirates, Mohammed bin Zayed, who's an amazing warrior. President El-Sisi of Egypt. Prime Minister Modi of India. We spent a long time together today. I spoke to Mohammed. I spoke to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia a number of times. They're all so happy that they're still, you have to have them happy too, you know. We're using their airports. Not that they could stop us if we didn't want them to, but it'd be nice that I went to get that little sucker. But I hate missing. But we spoke to all of them and many countries all over the world. So every country, I think Israel too. Look, think of what Israel's getting. They're not going to be nuked. It's very simple. I told Bibi, your biggest risk was that they'd drop a nuclear weapon into the middle of Israel. They'd only need one, and there would be no more Israel. Think of it, Bibi. You got the best, the most important thing that you were asking for is that. So I think they're happy. Some people are going to be, not him, but there are some people, some writers, some that I thought were friends of mine, but I don't want them as friends anymore because they're either stupid or they're bad people. But we stopped nuclear holocaust, and it stopped too. I mean, there's not going to be any of that. So from the beginning to the end, it was clear that this week, America's back. It's bigger and better and stronger. We're more respected as a country right now, I think, than we ever have been. And we were a laughingstock 2 years ago. They would laugh at us. We had a man that should have never been there. You know that. A man that would walk up to a podium once every year, and they'd ask him, "What flavor ice cream do you like?" "I like vanilla." Then he'd try and find the stairs, which he couldn't find most of the time, and he'd leave. This is very unfair reporting. And then you said you didn't know about that. You didn't know there was something wrong. We can never let that happen to our country again. To me, we had the worst inflation ever. We had the worst in prices and the costs. It's all coming down now because the oil is bringing it down. You're going to see numbers that are going to be amazing. But this evening, I look forward to a very special dinner with President Macron and his fabulous wife at the Palace of Versailles. I sort of like that palace. Palace has a lot of gold. I want to check it out. It's a beautiful palace, maybe the most beautiful of all. I hope you're going to get to see it. The ones that are traveling with me, I hope you're going to get to see it because it's amazing. But they asked me if I'd stay a little bit longer and go to Paris. So I'll get home a little bit later, but it'll be a nice dinner. But I'm interested to see it. That's the ultimate, I guess. It's the ultimate of its type. Louis XIV. Celebrating the 250th anniversary of America's founding and America's oldest alliance. And we're celebrating that a little bit tonight. They'll have the biggest people in Europe at the dinner. And those people love our country. And hopefully Europe's going to find its way. Europe is having a lot of hard times. They're doing some things very badly on energy and on immigration. They're doing things very badly. And we'll be talking about that tonight. So with that all said, if you want to ask us any questions, feel free to ask the people behind me. Yeah? Peter?
Bonjour. You've been clear, President Trump, the United States is not going to directly pay Iran, but the U.S. is going to let the Iranians start making billions of dollars, selling oil, accessing this reconstruction fund.
Only if they're doing things right. Only if we're not doing anything. We're not putting up money. Only if they're doing things right. If they're doing things right, if people want to invest, they can invest. But they had this $300 million fund. It's only $300 billion fund. It's only if they're doing things right. Remember this also. When you talk about billions of dollars, they've had much more than $1 trillion worth of damage done. They got a long way. There'll be 15 to 20 years to rebuild what they have right now. So they have to behave themselves. If they're not behaving, they get hit again. They'll be hit again because we can do it very easily. It's going to take a long way for them to build back their anti-aircraft stuff. It's going to take, and the other thing I want to thank China, President Xi, I was with him, and he stayed neutral, totally neutral, and I appreciate it. And I would want to thank Vladimir Putin. He was very neutral. They could have made it much more difficult for us. And I want to say it. Somebody would say, "Oh, that's terrible. He's thanking President Xi of China." Well, let me tell you, I had a long talk with him. They have shoulder weapons to knock down airplanes. That it's not like the real deal, but they're accurate. They're fairly accurate. I said, I would really appreciate you're not giving or selling any of that stuff to Iran. And you know what? For the most part, he didn't. So I just want to thank them because they made it a lot better.
Can you explain, though, what the difference is between giving Iran U.S. dollars and unfreezing U.S. dollars?
Well, the unfreezing is an easy one to answer. We have taken a lot of their money, and we have their money. We have taken their money. It's not our money. It's their money, and we froze it. At a certain point in time, I guess we're going to have to give it back. If we didn't give it back, nobody would ever invest in the dollar again. If you took their money, because I thought about it, I'm not the most perfect person. I said to Scott, why do we keep their money? What the hell are we giving it back to them? But people from lots of nations, some nations we don't agree with, they have their money. The dollar's become very strong under me. And they don't want to have a little conflict with somebody and end up having the United States just take their money. So if you do that, you really don't have a system.
And I did just want to ask you about this. A wise man once said in January of 2020, Iran never won a war, but never lost a negotiation. That wise man.
Who said that?
Donald Trump.
Oh, that's what I thought you were going to say.
So how do you go back to the United States and convince a skeptical American public that this deal is a
look,
win?
Here they lost militarily, okay? It's very tough because I know that no matter what, if I would go, by the way, if I'd go another 3 or 4 weeks, those same people that are critical would say, he went too long, he should have done, no matter what. If they raised the white flag of surrender, and if they said, praise be to Allah, Donald Trump is the greatest president ever. We totally concede, we totally give up. This war is over, we have failed. The New York Times and CNN and a couple of others, they're not all that dishonest, they'd say, Iran had a great victory, okay? They practically do that. It's amazing. When we knocked out their last ship, they had 159 ships. When we knocked out the last ship, the Times refused to do a story on it. I said, why wouldn't you? They don't have a Navy, and you don't want to do a story on it. They don't have an Air Force, you don't want to do a story. We need a fair press. And that's why they're all doing so badly, because they lost credibility. When I win in a landslide and I had 93% bad press, they take good stories about me and make them bad. But the only reason that happened is because they have so little, the media has so little credibility that the people voted for me. 93% of the stories on network, ABC is horrible. I think ABC is the worst. NBC is terrible. And CBS is terrible. CNN, obviously. And I never get good stories, no matter what I do. I could do the greatest thing. I won't get good stories on this. I'll get it from fair media. I'll get it from all over the world. They're writing good. But no matter what I do, I'm going to get bad press. I know that. Now, if I did the opposite, if I went out and continued to bomb them for another 4, just bomb the hell out of them, I'd get bad press on that. No, there's nothing I can do. But what this does is it allows the ships to go. If we keep bombing, those ships won't be going. And you're talking about $500, $600, $700 million a day. It's a lot of money, a lot of money. That's why the world is okay. It's liquid, it's fine. Also, we run out of reserves in about 4 weeks. There are reserves all over the world, and we would really run out. And there'll be a time when you wouldn't be able to get it. And you want to see bedlam? So for all those so-called geniuses that want to show me how smart they are, ask them, why didn't they blow up General Soleimani? Ask that of the general and a couple of other people that I like very much, but boy, are they wrong. Go ahead. How about you? Thank you, Peter. I'd give you more, Peter, but people say I like you too much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bonsoir. Mr.
He told me that first day in office, he asked me like 7 questions. I answered all of them. Is this true? He said, he just answered more questions in one meeting than Joe Biden did in 4 years. Okay, I'm not going to get you in trouble, but that's what you said. Go ahead.
Bonsoir, Mr. President. In The Art of the Deal, you write about the importance of leverage.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have a lot of leverage when it comes to Iran, whether
Tremendous
it's militarily or through economic sanctions. What leverage, sir, do you have when it comes to Israel and Hezbollah to ensure that they abide by the ceasefire?
Well, I think we have leverage just by the fact that we really have Iran now has to be good. They have to behave. And we might help. That's a much smaller conflict. It's a conflict that should be able to be over with. I'm surprised it's taken so long. And it's a much smaller, but we have a lot of leverage. We have the greatest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest, most powerful. Look at the blockade. By the way, the blockade was more impactful than all of the bombing raids where we dropped $1 billion worth of bombs on Iran. The blockade was so incredible. The naval blockade, the admiral, the whole thing, not one ship got through. That meant no money got through. They were dying. They had no money. They have inflation that's 250 or 300%. They have no money. We have tremendous leverage. We have the leverage of the economy as an example. We'll get that done. That's a small one, and we'll work with Israel and get it done. But I'd like to do it. I mean, you have people living there. Buildings are being dropped on top of them or right alongside of them. How would you like to live there? It's so unfair, especially Beirut. You know, you go into Beirut, and I looked at the scene 2 days ago, yesterday, where they hit. That was a big hit. That was unnecessary in my book. Yeah, please.
Two questions. If you could clarify something you said just a few minutes ago. One of the goals of Epic Fury going into it, you said was...
Say it again. Speak up.
Sorry. One of the goals of Epic Fury, you said going into it, was to destroy Iran's ballistic missiles and its capabilities to build more.
Yeah.
Why is it acceptable to you now that they keep some of that capability? And Iran is...
What are they keeping? What are they keeping? They have less than other nations now. We knocked out probably 85% of their missiles. The rest of them are underground. They can't even get them out. You know, the other night's raid, I think it was on the first night, we knocked out hundreds of their missiles. Actually, by mistake, we were hitting an area, and you can sort of see when the bombs are going off, and then you see one that looks like, wow, what happened? A lot of missiles knocked out. No, but what are you going to do? Let's spend another 2 weeks and give them none. They don't want to be firing missiles right now. They're going to have a hard time rebuilding. And if people from the Middle East, if people want to invest, and again, they don't have to invest at all, but if they do want to invest, it does have oil. It does have probably a future, but it's going to take a long time. But are you going to let the 91 million people starve to death? I mean, one of the things I was very intent on, they have water desalination plants, very good ones. I could have knocked them out in 5 minutes, just like I knocked out Cargill, and I knocked out everything but the oil. I said, 25, it was so complete. The only thing there is the pipes coming with the oil, because I didn't want to ruin the world market, because they do a lot of money. But I didn't want to do that, no. It would have been so easy. It would have been easier, and I would have satisfied a group of 10% of the people, but it would have been the wrong thing to do. And it could have caused an international depression. Maybe not.
Iran's position has always been that their nuclear program was for civilian purposes. If they come back after the signing of this and say they want to continue to have a civilian nuclear program, is that acceptable to you?
Well, I've said to them always, I say, look, you have probably the third largest oil reserves in the world. What the hell do you need nuclear for? You need nuclear for some electricity. So I've always felt that way. So we've been pretty tough in that. It is a little hard, though, when you say that somebody wants it, other people have it, other adjoining states have it, and you're not letting them have it for purposes of electricity and things like that. It's always a little tough. You have to use a little common sense, please. New York Times, please.
Thank you, Mr. President,
Thank you.
for the question. Now that you're approaching a new phase in this conflict with Iran, can you now say whether you will hold anyone in your administration accountable for the strike on a school that killed more than 100 children on the first day of the war?
No, if it was a fault, and as you know, that's under investigation. It's such a strange question to be asked at this state, because you're talking about a long time ago, but nobody did that on purpose. I guess you'd have to say about them, what about the thousands of soldiers that they blew up when they opened their car door? What about the thousands of people that were killed by Iran? No, mistakes are made. The war is nasty. But I know it's under investigation, and I could have a report for you tomorrow. Or I would ask Pete Hegseth that question, because they have it under investigation. Please.
Mr. President, you've been saying all week that this deal permanently prevents Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, but the drafts of the deal that have been floating around barely mention Iran's nuclear program. So can you explain how exactly the deal achieves that goal?
So when I say permanently, it should be permanently. But if it's not permanently, we will bomb them. They will be bombed, just like I bombed them on Wednesday night and Tuesday night, and was going to bomb them on Thursday night at a level that was 3 times greater, and they knew that. I will bomb them. Now, that's with me as president. If you have a weak, pathetic president. Maybe that doesn't happen, but I can only do the job that I have to do. I have a long time to go. I have almost 3 years, close to 3 years. Time is going fast. But our country's become we're the most respected country in the world. Those leaders today, they said, we used to laugh at you. 2 years ago, the same guys, they'd laugh at the country. And now they say, you're the most respected country anywhere in the world. Militarily, even military. Take a look at what happened look at what happened in so many different locations. Afghanistan, that horrible retreat that these people made, leaving equipment behind. They weren't under any pressure. You take your time. You can get out. I was going to get out. We were going to get out with dignity and pride, take 100% of the equipment. I was even taking the tents down. But then they got in and they just left. They left all the equipment. I may get all that equipment back. Now, here's the thing, more symbolic because it's a little old now, but we may get it all back. Afghanistan is kissing our ass. You know that?
So you're threatening to bomb Iran if they don't comply, but there's nothing enforceable in the deal itself. Is that correct?
Doesn't have to be. I let them know. I said, look, if you don't adhere to the agreement, I don't want to do that, but we're going to bomb the hell out of you. And I don't think that they're going to veer from the agreement. What else am I going to do? Am I going to say, I'm going to take you to court? Let me take you to court. Let me sue you. No, we're going to bomb the hell out of them if they violate the agreement. I don't want them to. I want them to honor the agreement. Again, the straits close up. Bad things can happen. You know, in war, terrible things happen. Like you mentioned the question before about a school gets hit. Other things get hit. Bad things happen in war. War is a nasty place. I see it. I see it. I see it better than maybe anybody has ever seen it. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, President Trump. Oil prices are now plummeting. How do you see this agreement further affecting energy prices in the U.S. and the U.S. economy in the long term? And secondly, Mr. President, how do you think Vice President J.D. Vance did on The View yesterday?
Well, first of all, thank you for the word plummeting, because that's what's happening. Oil prices are plummeting. And that means oil prices are going to come down. You know, if you make donuts, you have a heating, you have a stove, and you have to buy the heat, you need the gas or the electricity or whatever you're using. And when oil prices come down, oil is the biggest thing. Oil is, you get oil prices coming down, and they're going to come down. And we're hitting into threes now for gasoline, and that'll come down a lot lower. So I was in Iowa just before this started, and I was saying to myself, I can't believe we're doing so well, but I have to go, and we have to put out this fire in Iran because I don't want them using a nuclear weapon. They would have used a nuclear weapon. 100% they would have used it. The only question is, was it going to be that day or that week? They would have used a nuclear weapon. They were on the way. And I said, we're going to have to put out the fire. And I said, you know, oil prices, so gasoline, we passed 2 gas stations in Iowa, made a speech up there. The people are great. I won it by so much. And I love the people, farmers. And we passed 2 gas stations. One was $1.85. One was $1.91. Now, that's Iowa. But it was, I mean, California has all those crazy taxes that they put on, you know, California taxes. But the oil was down to $2 to, I'd say, between $2 and $2.50, and it was heading down further, and we were going to have a great run. We took a little journey down to a place called the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we bombed the hell out of them, and now they can never have a nuclear weapon. Now, we had a disturbance, but I must say it was much less than anybody thought. The oil never went to $350 a barrel. It went to $115, $120. The oil never went anywhere near that. And the other thing, I thought the stock market would go down 25 or 30%. The stock market a week ago, before we started this, was higher than it was when we started, which tells you that we have a very resilient economy. We have the strongest economy we've ever had. Now, the word affordability, it's a fake word but made up by the Democrats. Here's where it's fake, because they made it up, because I inherited these prices. And when I had my first news conference, first day, they started screaming affordability, the Democrats. Affordability, affordability, they're screaming. I say, what's that all about? They gave it to me. They gave it to me. It's affordability. And they use that word to a fare thee well. Well, they were the ones that created the affordability crisis. I'm the one that got it down. Remember, highest insurance rates in history, highest rates for everything. Eggs, remember eggs? They were 4 times more expensive than they were in my administration. And I got it down, Peter, very quickly. Our secretary did a good job of agriculture, Brooke. She did a great job with eggs and everything else. And now that the oil is coming down, you're going to see everything follow. Everything follows the cost of energy. And we're going to end up having the lowest energy anywhere in the world. Please. Yeah. No, please.
Thank you.
You're from ABC. You're fake news. Go ahead.
To follow up on oil, can you confirm, will Iran be able to immediately sell their oil to market? And will U.S. sanctions snap back immediately if there is a delay or collapse in the talks? And then relatedly, is there any safeguard in this deal to prevent Iran from charging what they say could be fees after the 60-day extension?
The thing that's going to stop them from doing that, because you can't cover everything in a document, is common sense. They don't want to get bombed. They don't want to get hit. As far as sanctions are concerned, at some point, we have sanctions which will never let them rebuild. They would have no money. They would be in poverty. The 91 million people would starve. So something will happen as soon as they behave. When they behave, we're going to let that go. We're going to have to. I put sanctions on a lot of people and then I let them go. A lot of countries. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Shinji Abe. I'm a Japanese Yomiuri newspaper company from the Washington Correspondent. My question is about the Strait of Hormuz. Did you ask other G7 nations to send military force? And what specifically are you asking of Japan? Or
where are you from?
I'm from Japan.
From where?
Japan. And is military support?
I just left your prime minister. Japan's doing very well. She's my biggest fan, I have to tell you. She thinks I did a great job. You have to call her and ask her. And, she's doing a very good job, by the way. Go ahead.
And military support is no longer necessary.
Yeah, but what do you want to know? Go ahead, just tell me. What do you want to know?
Okay, my question is, did you ask other G7 nations to send military force? And what specifically are you asking of Japan?
To send the Air Force? For what? Oh, other countries, not just Japan. No, we don't need it. Oh, by the way, they all want to do it. They all want to do it. Every single one of them. They want to go be a part of it now. Not while the war was going on. I was a little disappointed. The UK, I said, yeah, it would be nice if you sent ships. I didn't put a hard sell on, but I said, it would be nice if you sent some ships. And the Prime Minister said, they'll be there, sir, as soon as the war is over. I said, did he just say that? I couldn't believe it, actually. Japan has offered to get involved, but I mean, I'll be honest, Japan was not willing to get involved during the war. I asked her, I said, you want to get involved a little bit? I didn't put the heavy sell on, but they said, no, we don't want to get involved. Nobody did. We did it ourselves with Israel and with the Arab states that got hit, surprisingly hit. Yeah. Yes, please, go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Mr. President. Question on Brazil. I would like to know, how was your interaction here in Evian during the G7 with the Brazilian President Lula? Did you talk about the new U.S. tariffs on Brazil? Did you talk about the U.S. designation of criminal gangs as terrorists?
We did.
How was it?
I spent a lot of time with him, actually, and it's become a little rough country, right? Politically, it's been a little dangerous politically. You're talking about Brazil. Yeah. It's been nasty. I hear they arrested somebody that's running for office today. I found that out after we left. I just said goodbye to him, and I heard that they arrested the Bolsonaro Jr. He was doing well in the polls, and they arrested him because he made a statement in Texas. They arrested him, or they want to arrest him. They have something out for his arrest. No, they play pretty tough. But nobody plays tougher than the United States. Look, our elections are totally rigged. We have rigged elections. Please, in the back. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, President.
Thank you.
Sumu Sakamoto, the Asahi Shimbun. For G7, the concept of the rule of law has long been considered the core principle. During this summit, any of the leaders expressed any concerns on the possible violation of international law on the attack on Iran?
No, actually the opposite. They felt they were very dangerous. They were very relieved because they could get hit too. They were very relieved. No, we never discussed that. No, it'd be the opposite. They broke the law. They killed thousands of people. They killed thousands of our soldiers and hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. President,
yes.
Yesterday, the Pakistan thanks for the Chinese government to help make a peace talk between Iran and the United States. So, what do you think about the China's work to get the United States and Iran sitting down to talk and make the deal? And the second question is
okay. Let me answer the question.
Okay.
So I think China's been terrific. I told you that before. They could have been bad. They could have sent in to try and block or break the blockade. They could have sent in an oil ship with 6 destroyers alongside of it on each side. They didn't do that. President Xi helped me. He tried to help, and I think he probably helped get it solved. You know, they get 50% of their oil from that location. So that wasn't that easy. President Xi was fantastic. He tried to help me solve it. And he didn't give any big weaponry. I guess we'll find something somewhere along the line, but he didn't give any big weaponry. I can tell you that. No, I think China I couldn't ask for much more. Again, they were impacted because they get more than 50% of their oil from the Hormuz Strait. And no, I thought they were fantastic. Okay, how about one more question right here? Go ahead, please.
The latest YouGov Economist poll shows that Democrats have lost a 5-point edge on the generic congressional ballot. They just have now just a 2-point lead since February. Do you think that they're losing momentum?
Well, I see the Republicans in generics. You know, generics are very important. I don't know how accurate, because I see a lot of bad polls. Polls are very dishonest, just like a lot of reporters, like these people over here, are very dishonest. CNN, ABC, it's a whole group of them over there. They're really dishonest people. But, you know, and really networks are very dishonest. And they have to straighten themselves out, or they're not going to be very successful, because people don't believe them anymore. But no, the generics are very interesting because the Republicans are coming up strong even before this. You know why? They're seeing all these lunatics, like the guy in Maine with the swastika. You know, for 10 years they've been calling me a Nazi. And now they have a Nazi running. He's got a tattoo on him. I've been denying it for 10 years. They know it's not so, but they've been calling. I don't think they can call it to me anymore. You know, one more? One more? Go ahead, Peter. Let me finish with Peter, because he's been better to me than he's been to Biden.
Thank you, President Trump. I have a question about this weekend. Why not stick around for the signing ceremony with this Iran peace deal?
I might.
You might?
Yeah, I might. But I'd rather, this is a memorandum of understanding. It's very important, but it might not be the kind of a document that I should be signing.
Is there some element to this where you send the vice president? If it works out, great, you look like a genius for sending him. And if it doesn't work out, it's the vice president.
I like that idea, sure. Well, this way, if it works out, I'm going to take the credit. If it doesn't work out, I'm blaming JD. You better be careful, JD. He's going to turn his plane around and get the hell out of here. Yeah, I like that idea. I think it's a good idea. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. What the hell did we just watch? First, I can't stop laughing sometimes during these things. That was, quite frankly, one of the best endings. It was hilarious. All right, here's the rant. I'm only going to say this once, and I'm going to try to address this only once. So please, before you start with the waste of times, okay, let me be very clear about this. I try my hardest to stay neutral. I know a lot of people in the chat go on one side and then go on the other, and there's a lot of interaction. I don't get involved. I don't push my political beliefs on anybody. I believe that everybody is an adult. Everybody has the right to think for themselves. Everybody has the right to believe whatever they want to believe. I'm not looking to get into a sparring match. I'm not looking to get into a debate, because the reality is that nobody's going to change my mind, and likely I'm not going to change anybody else's mind, and that's fine. We're not here to discuss politics. We are here to discuss stocks. Now, unfortunately, these types of summits and these types of press conferences can have long-lasting implications on the stock market. He said some very important things in there, and I really think that people, look, regardless of who the president of the United States is, when the president of the United States speaks, it carries more weight than any elected official globally. Does not matter if they are a Democrat or Republican. It is the way that it is. And when the president of the United States speaks, you have to pay attention. I don't care if you like the president or not. You have to pay attention. Now, there was a very critical point in there that I hope everybody paid attention to. And I'm going to try not to curse. I'm going to try to be very diplomatic about this, okay? My hope is that everybody can act like an adult. My hope is that everybody can put their political beliefs aside and their own personal ideologies aside and look at everything very neutrally and understand that even if you hate oil and gas, the world revolves around it. Now, I've been very correct on a lot of things, and I've been wrong on several things, but I've been a lot more correct than wrong. And one of the reasons that happens is because I pay attention to all this stuff and I study it. Keep in mind, I was one of the only people, if not, I mean, you can probably find other people. I don't know of any others that was publicly saying oil was going to be under 80 the second that we announced this. I don't know how many other people said the time frame between Memorial Day and July 4th is when it's going to happen. And the second that it happens, you see oil drip below 80, and then it'll likely stabilize between 65 and 75. It's because I spend a lot of time researching the energy markets, even though I have an undergrad in economics and MBA, I still read a ton of stuff about the economy, and I keep up with everything. I read every single piece of data I possibly can, and I study it. Now, the president of the United States happens to be of the mindset that oil is one of the largest drivers of inflation, and that oil is the lifeblood of the global economy. And he flat out said in this, if you piece it together, that he wants oil to go lower for those reasons. That is what I was looking for out of this. Not really much more. I wanted to see how he would address the energy markets, because the energy markets are critical to every sector of the economy. That's all there is to it. You don't have to like Trump. You don't have to like Biden. But no matter who the president of the United States is, you have to pay attention to it. Now, here is where I am at on this. I think when I put everything together in my mind, we got Warsh speaking a little bit later. Where are the oil markets at right now? Let's take a look. And I'm going to weave all this right in. Crude is at 76.48 and Brent is at 79.28. We are still under 80 on both. If the strait remains open and you have these tankers flowing through, you will have more oil flowing onto the market. I have a very strong feeling that Kevin Warsh will be not super dovish, but he will not be a super hawk. and he will discuss the fact that oil is under 80 and what the implications mean if oil continues to fall further. Now, the key word is if. I'm going to lay out what if really means. You'll hear the critics say he's not a bond market guy, blah, blah. Fuck the bond market. I said it. Fuck the bond market, okay? Don't worry about it. Use logic. Here's the logic. Oil decreases. Your input costs go down. Transportation costs go down because gasoline goes down. Refined products goes down, which means jet fuel prices go down. Fertilizer prices go down because phosphorus and everything else goes down. When you have the input prices go down across the board of all the raw material inputs that go into running the economy, cost of goods and services goes down. When that happens, that spills over into the actual economy of products that we purchase. Oil is the key. Energy is the key to whether inflation is hot or cold, period. And if you think input prices are up right now, I don't think you'd want to see what input prices would be if oil was at 120 or 150. Input prices aren't that bad right now. Okay? Now, when we really think about what this means, CPI, a large part of why it is running hot is because of the energy market. It is not the jobs, it's the energy market. Productivity is increasing. And the flip side of this is if we focus absolutely on inflation over what is best for the economy, we will not be in a great spot. I am a supply side guy. You do not need to wait for a magic number of 2% to cut rates. It's just not logical. The cost of debt is astronomical. When companies took out debt 5 years ago, it was at a very low number. Having to refinance here is detrimental to margins. And the only way to offset that, if energy prices don't come down, is with RIFs. I think that we're going to see Warsh be very clear about a lot of things this afternoon. And I have a feeling that this is going to pave the way to see where energy goes over the next couple of months. And I still believe that there is a chance they come out of Jackson Hole ready to start talking about when the next rate cut is. In my mind, and look, I would love to say there's a 0% chance that we get a rate hike. I can't because it's a committee decision. It is not a one-person show. It is a committee vote. I think it is more probable we get rate cuts rather than rate hikes. You do not need rate hikes here. What will rate hikes do? It will break the back of average Americans. It will cause the carrying cost on debt to go up. That's one of the last things that you want to do. We are not in an economy where you have inflation running rampant through products. Also, 70% of the economy is services. If energy prices come down, prices will come down. And we are in such an on-demand nation and global economy that if demand increases and outstrips supply, more supply will come on to meet the demand because that means companies can generate revenue. I really think everybody should think about it like this. And this is my own personal view. Take it for what it's worth. You want an economy that is inclusive for business. You do not want an economy that is not inclusive. You do not. The last thing that you should want is listening to people who don't know what the hell they're talking about, and you just think that they sound smart, and then start getting in your mind that you want interest rates at 5% or 4.5%. It's the last thing that you want. The reason that's the last thing you want is because then if you try to go get a mortgage, rates are higher. If you don't pay your balance off on your credit card every month, your carrying costs on that debt costs you more money, and that's more money out of your pocket. The last thing that you want is that. You want any type of increased demand to be met with increased supply and let the free markets work it out. You do not want the Fed tinkering with rates. It is absolutely horrible. Now, in this economy, when I see oil doing exactly what I said it's going to do, there is no reason for me to believe that we won't get a band of 65 to 75 if ships really start going through over the next couple of weeks. That will strengthen the case for companies to deliver on Q2 guidance and full year 2026 guidance. That could set us up for more than 8,000 on the S&P and set us up for a further unlock of the economy, because if rates continue to go down, the housing market is likely to get unlocked. Trust me, you don't want interest rates going up and companies having to refi debt that they took out in 2021 at low levels at 10, 11, 12%. You will see rifts. You will see an economy where businesses cannot borrow, banks tighten their lending policies, and then the only way to make up that margin, and in some cases that margin is the difference between shutting down and operating, is by cutting people. That's the last thing that you want. So I think everybody really needs to take a step back and just think about that. And I'm not saying I'm the smartest person, but if you look at my track record, I've pretty much called everything correctly on the economy. Now, I'm not the smartest person, but I do take a very neutral stance and I look at the bigger picture. So be very careful of getting it in your head that you want rate hikes or that we should get rate hikes, because that would be absolutely disastrous for the economy. Absolutely disastrous. So anyway, on Trump, I know some of you don't like him and some of you love him. Sometimes he can be hilarious. Sometimes it can be like, get to the point. In the future, I am still going to watch these. Now, I'm not going to get into a political thing. It's just not me. I could care less how anybody votes. Okay? You'll never hear that from me. But these things are important to listen to. What's going to be even more important to listen to is what Warsh says. I think he goes on at 2:15 or 2:30. It's going to be incredibly important. We're going to see if he has a handle on the Fed. We're going to see what his outlook is going to be. And that's going to tee up a lot of things. Look, if Warsh comes out and he is different than what I'm envisioning him being, I'm going to have to walk back some of my statements and make probably a dedicated video about it and do a mea culpa and say, you know what? I read Warsh wrong, and I think that they're going to hike. I don't know. We'll see. I have to really listen to Warsh today. It's very important. But I think that it's going to be good for investors. I think it's going to be good for the economy. And I think Jerome Powell is absolutely wrong staying on the Fed board. I can tell you that as the president of my board, if I ever decide to step down or if I'm not voted in as president, I would leave the board because I don't want anything that I say to potentially influence anybody. And I just think that that's the way that it should be, period. So we'll see. We will see what happens. All right, let's look at where we are. The stock market doing pretty good. The Dow is up 125. The S&P down 6. The NASDAQ down 6. I mean, that's pretty good. Heading into a Fed chair meeting with a new Fed chair, that's pretty damn good. Hood is still the number one runner right now, 12.5%. You got to love it. Nebius 8%, ARM 7.5%, Marvell 6.24%, Rocket Lab 5%, Broadcom 5%, SoFi 4.9%. Love that. Micron almost 1,070, AMD 524, CoreWeave 120, Qualcomm 218, Palantir 135. Love it. NVIDIA is still being disrespected. There will be a rant video about the most disrespected stocks. Meta down 3.5%. These guys are idiots. Reddit 170, Amazon 239. These people who are selling Amazon, I don't understand it. Alphabet 364, Microsoft 384. I don't understand that. Salesforce 158. I did buy more today. Not a lot, but I did buy more. I think this is one of the most disrespected stocks in the market. SpaceX wants to go back above 200. I don't think it broke 190. I wasn't paying attention to it all day, but you know what? 198 is not too shabby. Not too shabby. Zeta 1954, Cisco 118, ServiceNow is teetering on 100, Tesla 403. I mean, not really horrible when you think about we're an hour away from a Fed meeting that's really important. I mean, there's some key data. Fed funds target rate is 3.5 to 3.75. We've held this since December. There's a 97% chance we hold today. I don't think we get a cut. CPI in May was 4.2%. We're at a 3-year high, but it's driven mostly entirely by energy. We had core CPI, if I remember correctly, was 2.9%. Goods was down 0.1%. PCE, I think, was what, 3.2, 3.3%. That's the Fed's preferred gauge, and it came in soft. The unit of labor cost, 0.5% year over year, the lowest pressure labor backdrop in decades. Productivity was 2.8%. It was above the prior cycle pace, and the output is growing faster than labor cost. Like, that's something that you got to take into consideration. Non-farm payrolls, yes, this was a big report, 172,000. But once again, productivity is very important. Unemployment rate is still 4.3%. We don't want that. So when it comes to inflation, a lot of it's oil. It's not a demand problem. I mean, your headline doubled in 3 months. Core barely moved. Energy prices jumped 3.9% in May, I believe. I mean, what, they're up 20% in 3 months? Goods are actually deflating. Core commodities fell 0.1% in May. First decline in 14 months. I mean, core PCE was 3.3% in April. Soft print. So I'm just saying, if this was demand-driven inflation, where is it outside of energy? Shelter cooled. Food was basically even. Goods are falling. So where's the demand-driven inflation when everybody wants to talk about all these different reasons? It's not showing up in the data. Like, we have to understand the data. So oil's reversing. So if everything was energy-driven and oil is reversing, you got to think the inflation's going to come down. So I think input, transport, and goods costs are all going to fall next. And I think that those are going to be, let me put it like this. Those are likely the areas that the hawks are slow to price in. And guess what? When's the last time a hawk became a dove? Like, really think about it. These guys want something to go wrong so they can be right for a couple of months. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, Brent got up to what, 115, 120 in March? We're nowhere near it. We have a deal being signed. Oil's under 80 on both Brent and WTI. We have supply coming back from multiple directions. OPEC Plus has higher export quarters. The UAE left OPEC They're trying to ramp production. I mean, gas is down. And I think that it's going to show up in the July print. I'm not going to say the June print is where, I think the July print is where it's going to be. And my own opinion, not going to say it's fact, okay? My own opinion is that the jobs report of 172,000 is not inflationary. The bears want to use those as a reason to fear inflation, okay? That chain breaks down the line after a couple of links because jobs don't show up in prices. Labor costs do. And labor costs are quiet. I mean, the report was pretty clean, 172,000 jobs in May. And look, the expectation was 80,000 or so. March and April were revised up, and you have the hawks coming out to play. But guess what? Wages are the transmission mechanism. Average hourly earnings, they only increased 0.3% on the month and 3.4% year over year, with CPI at 4.2%. Real wages are slightly negative. Workers are not bidding up pay faster than prices, which is the precondition for a wage price spiral. I've argued the Phillips curve is the foundation that they go after, and the Phillips curve is an outdated measure from the 70s that does not hold up in this economy. Back then, services was not 70% of the economy. Services 70% of the economy now. Low unemployment causing inflation has failed for decades. Like, anybody who actually believes that the Phillips curve works should do some research and look at the late 1990s. Unemployment was under 4% and inflation was falling. Look at 2019. We had 50-year low near 3.5% with core under 2%, and the economy was booming. The common thread in every low inflation boom is productivity, and we have it here. And services flip the bear case. 2/3 of the economy is spending on services, and services prices are mostly passed through labor costs. Every new hire adds supply at the same time, it adds demand. Inflation needs demand to outrun supply. Not happening. Not happening. Look at Frito-Lay. They're cutting prices by 15%. Walmart and Costco have been eating input costs through automation rather than passing them on to the consumer. Where's the inflation if these companies are finding ways to absorb prices? It's not being passed on. You actually need goods to spike for inflation to actually be real. And when you have Walmart and Costco eating input costs, it's not getting passed on. It's not. Productivity is rising and jobs don't show up in CPI. This is the structural reason the old models are continuously wrong. The output per hour is climbing, so the same wage group produces less price pressure than it used to. I mean, I could go on. I could keep going on. I'm not going to bore you guys. I could keep going on about this. But do me a favor. When you really look at this, go the extra mile if you want to understand the actual way the economy works. Please. There's a lot of these hawks that are fucking wrong. Wrong. So, anyway, I think we're going to be in a strong market. We will have to see what Warsh says. I wanted to stream Warsh talking. I know Amit's coming on. Let me call him. Let me text him, actually. What time are you going on? I am still on and want to cover FOMC. Maybe I'll do it with him. Maybe I'll do it on my own. But I'm 100% listening to it. I mean, It's so important for the next 6 months to a year. And, I think a lot of people don't put the time in. I know Amit does, some other people do, but I don't think a lot of people truly put the time in and go the extra mile with it. It's so important. So important. But look, here's where I'm at. You guys know that I was a liar last year and I had to make I'm sorry video because I said S&P 8,000 last year and we got to like 79.50. We were right there. Is he live? He's live right now. I thought he said he was going live like 145 or 2. Oh, maybe I'll just stay live then. Last year on December 31st, when Amit and I did the New Year's Eve stream, I said S&P 8,000. It wasn't a popular thing. I never do what's popular. I don't care what's popular. When I explained the Japan yen trade to everybody and said that this was a 2-day bullshit thing that's going to get worked out, that's exactly what it was. When tech got demolished the other day, 2 weeks ago, and everybody was crying, what did I say to you guys? Or everybody that showed up in the stream? This is people front-running SpaceX, trying to raise capital, Algo's getting a hold of it, and people getting stopped out of positions and getting margin called and having to sell into weakness. And what happened? Oh, on Monday it rebounds. Down 950, up 940, rebounds. So it's just, we're in a very fast-paced market. And I think that we are at the point where we have to really do more due diligence. And look, I don't take what's easy and what's popular. I do the research to come up with my own thesis. And I said S&P 8,000 before the year started for this year, the day before it started, December 31st, it's recorded. I called the liberation bottom. I called this bottom with the Iranian war and called oil. The call still stands for 8,000. But you know what? Tonight, I may have to change that if I don't like what Warsh says. And I will say, you know what? Due to the situation, the deferral of rate cuts did not scare me, but I'm more than willing. If I don't like what Warsh says, I'm more than willing to say what he said changed my mind, and I'm going to update my pricing. So we'll see. We got to see what he says. Yeah, I didn't think he was live. And I do think everybody should drink milk. I love milk. Yes, I'm planning to do FMOSA. I'm pretty sure I know how to make money on stocks. I'm pretty sure I have a lot of winners. It's just some of my plays take a while to play out. That's all there is to it. I don't look for tomorrow or next month. I am a long-term investor. I have to work on my diet? Yeah, no. Sorry. I'm a 2-year-old. I eat what I want. I think Warsh is speaking at 2:15 or 2:30. Michelle, it's too early for Oreos. I can't start doing that. It is too early for Oreos, my friends. There's no gel in my hair. I don't know why you guys think there's gel in my hair. There's no gel. No. I can't eat Oreos now. Here's the problem. If I start eating Oreos now, the bag's going to be gone by 6 p.m. I can't do that. I got shit I got to do today. After the FOMC, I need to go to the hobby shop and I need to go buy some Pokemon cards is what I need to do. I am going to tell everybody this. If you're interested, Ascended Heroes, the ETB, I think is going to be a huge play. Now, there's going to be reprints, so the price may come down, but long term, man, that's going to be a killer set. Killer set. I'm eating less junk food. I'm drinking more water. So, I don't know. I love comments like this. Grown man buying Pokemon cards. Come on, bro. Hey, Thomas, do me a favor. Go do some research. You think I'm buying Pokemon cards to play with them, bro? Alternative investments. Do me a favor. Do me a favor. Go do your research. They outpaced the S&P for decades. I have made a lot of money on sealed products, like a lot. Legos have done very well also. Yes, they have. Yes, they have. You know, Erwin, you weren't supposed to say that. You weren't supposed to say I've been asking you if you're going to the tournaments or not. You weren't supposed to ask that, man. What the fuck? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold on a sec. Zinc. If you legitimately have a full box of Magic the Gathering from 96 to 2006, if you legitimately have that, you need to go get that box and you need to look at every card and figure out what they're worth. Some of those cards are worth a ton of money, like a ton of money. Ton of money. One Piece cards are exploding also, absolutely. I mean, look, I'm not buying individual cards. I am buying sealed products and putting it in my storage unit. Dude, Alpha Investments, Rudy, baby. I have a announcement. I'll make an announcement. Make an announcement. You ready? Rudy's Grading Company, PCG. Alex and I are going to be interviewing somebody tomorrow for Alternative Asset Weekly. Look at you guys knowing about Black Lotuses. Look at you guys. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Man, I don't get it. Look, I really need to know something, you guys. Listen. You guys spam the chat with all this alternative investment stuff, and none of you guys actually watch the alternative investment videos I make. I don't get it. Craziness. Craziness. But look, I think that there's some opportunities in the market. And I think that Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Salesforce are so undervalued that it's very hard to go wrong on those. Now, maybe the market's going to be bearish on them for a while. I don't know. But when you look at where they are going with profitability, competitiveness, who can compete with them? I'm very excited about where they go forward. Well, if we're here for the BM&R news, we're going to be waiting a lot longer. We need the Clarity Act to go through is what we need. Woo. This gentleman knows what he's talking about. Base Set, Jungle, and Fossil. If you legitimately have those, you should think about potentially, depending on what condition, grading them. I mean, look, if I had a full set of fossil, if I had those 3 full sets, I would seriously consider grading every one of those cards. And now I'd have to look at conditions and stuff, but I'll tell you, I've seen some wild sets that get crazy premiums. "15 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. 15 minutes until we get the Fed." I mean, I'm excited. I couldn't be more excited for the Fed decision at 2. We're just going to bullshit for 15 minutes and then we're going to roll right into it. I'm staying with you guys. I'm not leaving. We're going to analyze it. I don't think I'm going to stream with Amit. I think I'm just going to keep this stream going. Diddy, it depends on what Otani card. If it's numbered or auto, it's going to do well. Well, we get the Fed decision at 2. Warsh doesn't speak until 2:30. But we get the Fed decision about rates. Hollis, that's hilarious. Are they actually considered alternative athletes? That would be legit as hell if they were. So legit. I've never played the game, but you know what? I think if I learned all the rules, I could be pretty good. PSA, public company, is not PSA, the collectible stock. So PSA, the card grading company, is owned by Collectors, which is a private company. I'd wait for Wemby's to come down in price. I think Wemby's are going to come down in price after his comments. He acted like a sore loser, and they choked. So I think they come down in price, and I think you'll be able to pick them up in several weeks or months at a better price. That's just me. But I would be buying Wemby's. I mean, I started buying some Wemby's, but I bought them going into the finals. So I'm waiting. I'm going to buy more later. Ned Flanders and I will be streaming tonight together at 8 p.m., I think. So we will not be streaming FOMC together. I don't know if we can handle each other for that long. Where do I buy my cards and alternative assets? I mean, you know that I do a stream with Nostalgianomics, so I'm pretty sure you can read between the lines. I may have some connections. My buddy does a ton of business with a shop, and I get stuff from him. And I do a fair amount of business with a local shop, and I get stuff from there. So I have a couple of outlets to get product. But yeah, eBay's fine. You're going to pay, but eBay's good. I think P Football Pete is a good reseller, and establish a relationship with your local shop. Alex seems to think Prismatic is going to go through the roof. I would trust him before me. He thinks Ascended is going to do very well, but he thinks there's going to be reprints. So he thinks that there's time to still get Ascended. I think both will do well. For the milk gang. Rocks glasses of milk. Sealed is the way to go. Absolutely. Sealed is the way to go. Would I rather have 100,000 bananas or 100,000 in cash? I mean, I think the only way to ask that is I got to ask a question. Did a bomb just go off and everybody is running around frantic and I'm worried about a food supply or not? Because if I'm not worried about a food supply, I'll take 100 grand in cash. But if I'm worried about a food supply, I'll take the bananas. Dude, Warsh has an opportunity to make the market go crazy. Yeah, but bananas don't cost $1 a banana. You can't sell the bananas for more than, no way. No way. No, no, no. Bananas do not go for $1 a banana. There's no way. I do my own grocery shopping. They don't. Exactly. And bananas expire quick. There's not a long shelf life. You got to get out of them. Can't do it. Can't do it. Jake Rizzo is here. Jake Rizzo, my buddy. Keep in mind, it is not Warsh's decision if we cut. There is a Fed vote majority. He is one vote, even though he is the Fed chair. Please keep that in mind. Please. Yes, we can do a poll on the FOMC. Let me do it right now. All right. Start a poll, everybody says. Start a poll. Will Warsh be dovish or hawkish? Dove, hawk. All right. We got a lot of people here. Please vote. And do me a favor. If you find me entertaining or if you happen to like the stream, please like and subscribe. It actually helps me quite a bit, and I would appreciate it. Thank you. I try not to ask anything of anybody, but those two things actually do help me. So like and subscribe if you haven't. I would appreciate it. All right. Wow, 90% dovish. Let's go. Let's get a lot more votes in here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get a lot more votes. I think he's going to be dovish, personally. Now, if oil was not where it is, I think that, there's going to be a problem. But oil's under 80. Oil's under 80. It's hard to think that we're going to be in a situation where he's going to say, oh, we got to watch out for inflation. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. Listen, Warsh is a billionaire. I hope he does something with that money. And yes, I know he's only got $200 million. His wife, which means him also, is a billionaire. So they're not cutting. Come on, they're not cutting. I agree with it's Brian. I'm with you. I think it's held steady right now. I think it's going to be held steady. So I'm going to take a 1-minute break. I'm going to go use the restroom. I'll be right back. It is right behind me, and we're going to get ready for the FOMC meeting. Grab a drink. Hopefully, we get some good commentary. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am back. You know what, Hollis? I was not drinking a White Russian. I was drinking milk, man. Jeez. Listen, Warsh very well may talk about reducing the Fed's balance sheet. He may. Did I wash my hands? Yes, I washed my hands. Jesus. Of course I did. What the hell is wrong with you people? Oh. AI executives leaving Meta. I didn't see that, but you know what? The market has turned green. All right, let me get this set up. Where am I gonna stream this? All right, I guess CNBC is gonna have to do to stream it. What do you want from my life?
How does this work on the draft now that Jason's here?
Jason's going 6th. He's going after you because he's the new guy.
So he gets to pick 2 in a row.
No. How's he get?
What do you mean no?
Oh my God, Tanner. You're
He gets 6th and 7th pick, and I get 8th pick.
Are you that dumb?
What are you talking about? That's how we did it last year.
No.
Are you saying that a mid gets to go 7th?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. This fucking guy. You guys know that he just does that just to piss me off, right? Like, I don't get it. He's just mad there's a cabal out there. That's all. He's just mad that there's a cabal. Tanner is mad there is a cabal against him. Anyway, that guy. Tanner's that guy, everybody. All right, we got like 30 seconds. We got like 30 seconds for the Fed decision. Let's see what happens. Fed decision is imminent. We're going right to CNBC is what we're doing. We're not playing around with this.
Does he bring consensus? How does he bring credibility to the narrative? What are the sort of breadcrumbs that we see about how his style is going to evolve? But honorable mention, I want to hear what Kevin Warsh has to say about inflation. I agree with Claudia Sam here. Kevin Warsh and the American people have an inflation problem, and it needs to be addressed. I don't think he can get through today without talking about inflation.
Claudia?
Yeah, no, and I think while he's going to want to be building consensus, there's been a lot of disagreement among committee members. There's been a lot more discussion about the possibility that a rate hike might be appropriate later this year. And while, he shouldn't be signaling the future, just like, what are people looking for? What is that debate? Like, really put it out there and let us understand what the committee members are looking for in the data and what they think is happening with inflation.
I don't know. Francis, Kevin Warsh is pretty critical of the Federal Reserve and its balance sheet. Now he's the chairman. He can actually do something about it. Does he?
Well, there are 12 voting members on the Federal Reserve, so he's got to convince 11 other members to move to his direction. This is a Kevin Warsh story, but it's not entirely a Kevin Warsh story. The data determines how the Federal Reserve moves. The rest of the voting members determine how the Federal Reserve moves. So yes, today is a monumental day. We're going to find out what the next 4 years look like in terms of style, but it's not everything.
Quick word, David?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. But I think the style is going to be important here, and I think he will try to avoid really signaling where he's going from here. He can't do anything about the balance sheet in the short run. That's a long-term project, and there are no easy choices. Do you want to push up mortgage rates? You want to push up long-term interest rates? That's what happens if you reduce the asset side of that balance sheet. He doesn't want to be responsible for that right now.
Well, let's find out what kind of style and words that he uses, because it's happening all now. Steve Leishman with the Fed's call on rates.
The Federal Reserve in the first meeting under new chair Chairman Kevin Warsh, keeping rates unchanged in unanimous vote of 12-0. The statement, by the way, has been dramatically shortened to 4 quick paragraphs. It's about a third of the length of the prior statement. The easing bias was dropped as expected from the prior statement. The Fed reaffirms its policy, really answering David Kelly right there, of maintaining ample reserves. So no discussion really about changing the balance sheet, at least not at this point. Economic activity is said to be expanding at a solid pace despite elevated uncertainty, the uncertainty linked to the conflict in the Middle East. They're noting strong productivity growth and capital investment. Job gains have kept pace with the workforce, the statement says. Inflation remains elevated relative to the 2% goal, reflecting the supply shocks that are out there. And then it ends with a simple declarative statement: the committee will deliver price stability. On to the forecast, where there's a lot more interesting things going on. And what is happening there, first of all, only 18 of 19 officials submitted projections. Does raise the question about whether Warsh did not submit one, as has been widely speculated on Wall Street. We do not know if the person who did not submit was Kevin Warsh. There was a sharp upgrade in the funds rate projections. 9 officials now projecting a rate hike this year. 5 of them see 2 hikes this year. 1 sees 3 hikes. However, 8 are projecting the Fed to hold. 1 sees a cut. So the funds rate averages out to 3.8 from 3.4 from the prior forecast. A really divided Fed on this issue. On average, rates are seen at the current level of 3.62 next year, declining eventually to the neutral rate, which remains unchanged at 3.1. There was a sharp upgrade in both core and headline PCE inflation forecasts to 3.6 from 2.7 this year on headline, and from 2.7 to 3.3 on core. The core remains elevated next year. That might be important at 2.5%. So I'm recapping here. A unanimous vote, a much shorter statement. No forward guidance in the statement. They removed a lot of the vestigial stuff from the statement that was really, my opinion, kind of worthless about how the Fed will make its decisions. And they also show a divided committee when it comes to the outlook on rates. Brian, back to you.
This statement is so short, it's practically a tweet. I mean, this entire statement is 1 sentence, then 2 sentences, then 2 more sentences, then another, and then it ends. I mean, this is the shortest. Steve, this is the shortest Fed statement. This almost looks like a news alert.
Well, it almost looks like a Greenspan statement, if you really want to know. I did a calculation. I don't have it in front of me, but the statement number of words went like this: came down under Powell, but has now come down much more to kind of where Green.
Okay, some of these Fed chairs have to go. Some of these Fed chairs have to go. Now, they're not talking about unloading the balance sheet. Fine with that. They're talking about, what was interesting is, if I heard them correctly, which I think I did, they talked about a bunch of them thinking we need at least 1 cut this year, but the majority of them think we get back to 3.1% by the end of next year. So you want to raise rates this year and then start cutting next year? How fucking stupid are you? Like, come on. I don't even care about me cursing anymore. These people have lost their minds. They're bozos. I don't get it. This doesn't make any sense. How do you have that many people on the Fed that honestly think that we need not just one, but 2 rate cuts this year? The hell are these people thinking? The hell are these people thinking? Out of their minds. Out of their minds. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see what Warsh says. Cannot wait to see what he says. Does he play it down the middle? Does he not want to expose anybody? Or does he just say, listen, these people are stupid. I'm working with a bunch of morons. Warsh may have to come out and say, I'm working with a bunch of morons at this point. Woosa, woosa, woosa. Wow. I am actually surprised that there are that many people that think we need two hikes this year. Now I'm going to write an open letter tonight, I think. Now I think that I'm going to write an open letter tonight. Oh my God. And this is part of the reason I don't want Powell on the board. This is part of the reason. That statement was made just now. We got Warsh in 24 minutes. 24 minutes. Look, traditionally, Warsh has been more hawkish than dovish. I don't think Trump would have put him in unless Warsh told Trump and Bessent everything that they wanted to hear and is going to stab them in the back. I refuse to believe he's going to come out super hawkish. Now, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But you know what? If for some reason they rate 9 Fed officials projected at least 1 rate hike this year, 5 see at least 2 hikes, 1 sees 3. What are you morons looking at? Like, I'm almost at the point, abolish the Fed. I'm going to do it. I feel like I'm going to continue my rant. I feel like I should continue my rant. I mean, I don't get it. I legitimately don't get it. The unit of labor costs. Hold on a second. Tanner messing around. Before I go on the rant, I'm going to have to call this guy. Oh, no answer. He's too busy texting in a group chat to us that he's too busy to answer. Tanner. Oh, Tanner. All right. I'm still flabbergasted right now. I am still flabbergasted. Okay, I need to calm down. Unit labor costs, okay, they rose 0.5% over the past 4 quarters. That's wage growth net of productivity. And it's one of the lowest pressure labor cost backdrops that we've seen in decades. 0.5%. That's the labor cost pressure in the economy right now. And productivity is running above the prior cycle. Output per hour is up 2.8% this year over year. And when you think about the current business cycle, since 2019, at a 2.1% annual pace versus 1.5%, more output per worker means a given wage gain that gets diluted across more production. I don't understand what the hell the Fed's doing. Productivity is running above the prior cycle. I mean, workers are taking the smallest slice on record. Labor share of output fell to about 54%. I mean, the strong jobs number is not an input to the price index. CPI, like I don't get. These are people with Fed chairs. CPI measures what consumers pay. It measures what consumers pay. The link from jobs to prices only runs through wages and then through unit labor costs. And both of those are calm. I mean, the bears are reacting to a number that doesn't feed on the thing that they are afraid of. Woosah, woosah, woosah. I mean, okay. Okay. This is going to be super important, whatever Warsh says. Let's go to Cactus Jack. All right. So here is where, and this is weird. I mean, you guys all heard what I said. You guys heard the same thing as me. So you have hikers this year. So look at that at the 4% line. You have you have 6 people above 4% this year and 3 next year. What the fuck? Why is this such short-term thinking? What is wrong with these people? What is wrong with these people? Seriously. Do they not care about corporate debt maturities? Do they not care that $1.35 trillion of non-financial corporate debt matures in 2026 and has to be refinanced? That the S&P counts for about 7.3 trillion of rated corporate debt maturing over the next 3 years, with close to 1.5 trillion of that being speculative grade. Do we not care? What's wrong with these people? I'm going to go for a walk after Warsh speaks, and I'm doing an open letter tonight. I'm so fucking mad right now. Ash, thank you very much. I like Netflix. I think they should buy TKO, Man U, and MSG and take live sports off TV and put it on their platform. Thank you for the super. Really appreciate it. Two Sharps, thank you for becoming a member. Conservative Millennial, thank you so much. Fed must be a psyop to bring stocks down. Maybe. Conservative Millennial, again, thank you very much. What's crazy is that these people are real and change world economics. They need Econ 101 pushing toward AI Fed. I mean, has Trump said anything? Truth Social. Nope. Woosa. Woosah. Woosah. Exactly. People are up to their eyeballs in debt and they want to make it harder to overcome. I mean, I think that they don't get it. Like, think about this. For every extra dollar a company spends on interest as it refinances, it tends to cut about 10 cents of capital spending and 20 cents of labor costs. You raise rates, you're asking for a recession. You're asking for a recession. Higher refi costs will lead to cuts in capex and headcount, which will lift unemployment. Rising unemployment is the single most reliable leading indicator of recession. Recessions are where we produce the real bear case and real bear markets. These people are so dumb, it's unbelievable. Like, they're so fucking dumb. The rise in CPI and PPI is because of energy, nothing else right now. That will work itself out as oil prices come down. There is no scare on inflation. None. Oh my God, these fucking morons. I don't even know anymore, guys. I don't even know anymore. 14 minutes. 14 minutes until Warsh comes. So I want to address this. You say you don't want to get political, but isn't it obvious to you yet? I'm talking about the side of economics. This is not a political statement. Me talking about what is likely to cause a recession and unemployment has nothing to do with politics. It's economics 101. It's not political. Okay? It's not political. Don't try to turn this into a Democrat Republican thing. It has nothing to do with it. This is pure economics. Hollis, I disagree with you there. Oh. Two Sharps, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the support. This is legitimately crazy. All right. 11 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. 11 minutes. Let's look at where we are in the markets. All right. It's not that bad. It's not that bad out there. Let's look at individual companies. Hood is still up. Nebius, Marvell, Broadcom. SoFi 1844. AMD, Lena's favorite company, 521. The SMH, 633. CoreWeave, 119.50. Qualcomm, 216, ladies and gentlemen. Palantir, 134. SanDisk, over 2,000. Tesla, 403. NVIDIA, 206. Oracle, 187. I mean, we're starting to get into the red. Cisco, 118. Big old scary Mo, 69. ServiceNow is under 100. SpaceX, 197. I got to tell you, SpaceX holding up is very bullish, SpaceX. Very bullish. Very bullish. Reddit's moving up, 171.96. It was under 170 before. Google 365, TKO 195, Amazon 239, Meta 577. I mean, come on. Can't we get a break here, ladies and gentlemen? Can't we get a break on Meta? Craziness. Craziness. Salesforce 157.66, still being disrespected. Well, it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of good companies out there trading at low valuations. We're seeing money move out. Communication services is getting smoked because of Meta, but chips are doing well today. The chips are doing well today. Well, I'm interested. Why do you want to offload Meta? What is it about Meta that you don't like here? Profitability is incredible. I mean, yeah, I've heard CRM's the worst stock also, to be honest with you. People keep telling me that. People keep telling me. Man, Rocket Lab moving, baby. SoFi 1839, I like it. AMD 520. CoreWeave 119, Qualcomm 216. A lot to like. Don't worry, the Snipes. I'm there with you. I bought more CRM today, and it's probably still going to go down. It is what it is. It is what it is. In other news, President Trump said negotiations with Anthropic over restoring access to the latest model are going fine, whatever the hell that means. Oh, craziness. So what do you guys think? You think he's going to be hawkish? You think he's going to be dovish? Neutral? What do you think? I don't know who's packing on 3 hikes. They should have to put their name next to everything. They should have to put their name next to everything. Well, yeah, Powell's still controlling the Fed, obviously. 6 minutes and incoming, ladies and gentlemen. 6 minutes. All right, we're going to cut to CNBC for a moment. Then we're going to go directly to the Fed's homepage. God damn it.
In April, energy prices were up almost 90% year over year. As we sit here today, they're up 3.5% over where they were last year. So I think that inflation is going to start to come down, and that will be the catalyst. And that'll cause a lot of these minds to change on the Fed. Because I do think the broader spectrum of inflation is on a disinflationary trend when you think a little bit broader.
David, what do you think of some of the theory and reaction we're getting is, oh, he wanted to come out guns blazing to the committee on inflation to kind of cement his kind of, I'm going to put inflation first, you can trust me. But then to Larry's point, if things look a little bit better in a meeting or two, maybe we can start to bring back and pivot back more towards rate cuts.
The FOMC is pretty evenly divided here. And what will determine is not Kevin Warsh's charisma, but what happens to the economy. If inflation does come down, if the labor market softens, then they won't raise rates. But it's hard to tell. One point I think you haven't talked about yet is the sentence where they're reaffirming the policy of maintaining ample reserves in the banking system. That is not consistent with we're going to rush to shrink the balance sheet. So it'll be really interesting to hear how Kevin Warsh talks about the balance sheet, if he does, in the press conference.
And just to explain, as we're looking at bonds, the hawkishness of the statement is kind of mitigated by the lack of hawkishness on the balance sheet. It kind of
I don't think the
balances it out a little
statement is
bit.
as hawkish as the dots. The dots and the forecasts of higher core inflation, that's the hawkish part. What Kevin Warsh is trying to do with this statement is not use the statement to give forward guidance. And I think he did a pretty good job of that. He doesn't say which way the balance of risks are.
Yeah, but if the dot
But
plots
he's stuck with the dots.
Yeah, but if the dots are the summary of economic projections, technically, if the dot plots don't align well with the statement, then the bond market's going to be confused. And what the bond market does not want to be is confused.
Right. Well, I feel sorry for the bond market. They're going to be confused. What I want to see is, what does Kevin Warsh do about the dots when he gives the press conference? Does he even talk about them?
And I think what we've seen so far has been an appetizer. I think the main event's going to be with the press conference. And I think you're going to be able to pick your poison, right? I think if you're a dove, he's probably going to talk about the fact that maybe we should look at other alternative metrics when it comes to inflation. I think he's going to talk about potentially AI and how longer term that's disinflationary. And as you said, though, the Hawks are going to talk about the fact that maybe he does want to reduce the balance sheet longer term. So I think there's going to be a lot of things coming out during this upcoming press conference.
Well, I do wonder if Jerome Powell was very good to take all of the reporters' questions. Maybe not everyone, but a lot of them. He would sit there and he would take questions from all the different news organizations. I wonder if this statement is some kind of a guide that maybe Warsh takes two questions and he's out. We don't know what to expect from this press conference. And now from this, I do wonder if it may be very different. He's going to say, I am not Jerome Powell.
You have a lot of guts to predict something 4 minutes before it happens. But I think
that's what I've been told.
I think the statement will be erased in the public and the market consciousness after the press conference, because the press conference is what we're going to get a sense of what Kevin Warsh really thinks.
And what does the market want to hear,
I think
Larry?
he'll want them to he'll leave them wanting more. I think that's part of this, right? You don't want that forward guidance to be locked down. You want to leave some questions, let the market interpret it later on over time.
And were you saying you don't think he wants, so let's say he's asked point blank, was your dot the missing dot? Was your projection the missing one? And the reason why we're asking is all the projections for inflation, they moved higher, but his might have been an outlier to the downside. You don't think he'd want to answer that question?
I think he will answer that question because that's one of his primary things. He does want to change some of the communication. And by the way, he's not alone. I mean, even Fed Chairman Powell said, you know what, these are stale as soon as they're in paper.
The question he won't answer is, if you had put in a dot, what would it have been? He won't answer that one.
So he won't tip his hand if he himself is inclined one way or the other.
No, I agree with that. And I do think, again, there's been plenty of people that have talked about this. And I think that we're likely going to see. I think the question is at the Fed, is that what are you going to replace it with?
Exactly.
Right? That's the thing that they really have to come up with. And I think you'll see a bunch of subcommittees, trying to figure this out over time. And I think still that we're not looking for any type of change in interest rates this year, which gives the Fed time. 4 more meetings, Jackson Hole, that'll give plenty of time to start to communicate this with.
Okay, so we got 2 minutes to go, but a lot of our audience probably screaming at the radio or the TV saying, darn it, I just want to know what the Mag 7 and SpaceX are doing. They're not moving a lot. So the stock market is not reacting super negatively to what was, by all accounts, a slightly more hawkish meeting.
I think for the most part, the economy and the stock market has become less interest rate sensitive over time, particularly the Mag 7.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. The main event we've all been waiting for. The main event we are waiting for. Kevin Warsh. Here he is, the man of the hour. Let's go.
Good day. It's an honor, a true honor to be back at the Federal Reserve and to take up this duty at a time of such consequence. I've been especially heartened by the warm welcome of old friends and new colleagues both. And I've listened closely to my fellow FOMC members, heard a lot of new ideas, new thinking, and genuine interest in moving the Fed forward. This week's FOMC meeting exemplified the very best of the Fed's traditions: rigorous debate, open-mindedness, commitment to mission, responsibility, and accountability for performance. In this business, they all add up to one thing: getting monetary policy right, or as near to it as we can do. That is our North Star. My colleagues and I are here to serve our legislative remit, which you've heard us say before: price stability and maximum employment. And these objectives guided our business in the meeting just concluded. As you saw a few moments ago, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the Fed funds rate at 3.5% to 3.75% in support of the Fed's dual mandate. The committee also reaffirmed its policy of maintaining ample reserves in the banking system. Economic activity is expanding at a solid pace, despite elevated uncertainty that owes in part to the conflict in the Middle East. Productivity growth and capital investment both strong. Job gains have kept pace with the workforce, and the unemployment rate has changed little. We recognize that inflation has been running well ahead of the Fed's long-stated inflation goal of 2%. That's been going on for more than 5 years. Persistently high prices are a burden for the American people. But the recent past need not be prologue. I am pleased to report that members of the FOMC are unambiguous and unanimous. This committee will deliver price stability. At any institution, a change in leadership is a natural and timely opportunity to reaffirm its mission, to review current practices, and to consider whether those practices best meet our objectives. My Fed colleagues and I will be working in close collaboration to ask what changes might improve the conduct of monetary policy. On that score, you might have already noticed something, a difference in today's policy statement. It's a bit shorter, a bit simpler, and it dispenses with some older language. That statement just gives you the facts as best we can judge it. Absent also is so-called forward guidance, which we agreed was not well suited to the current policy conjuncture. This afternoon, you also received the usual summary of economic projections. It's been the practice of this committee for participants to submit these projections, and I have encouraged my colleagues to continue to do so. I, however, have refrained from offering any projections of my own, consistent with my long-held views on the SEP, at least as currently structured. In the median projections, real GDP rises at 2.2% this year, 2.3% next year, and total PC inflation runs at 3.6% this year, 2.3% next year. The unemployment rate stands at about 4.3%. The median participant judges that the appropriate federal funds rate to be at 3.8% at the end of this year and 3.6% at the end of next. Let me turn now to a few words on a key initiative that we're announcing today. I'm appointing a task force in each of 5 areas that are central to the broad conduct of monetary policy. First, Fed communications. Second, the Fed's balance sheet. Third, our use and reliance on existing data sources. Fourth, productivity and jobs in an era of transformation. And last, the Fed's inflation frameworks. These subjects are timely, consequential, and in my view, worthy of a fresh look. My colleagues and I discussed them with energy and purpose over the last couple of days. For each of these independent task forces, I'm enlisting some of the very best minds, both inside and outside the economics profession. They will be supported by subject matter specialists from our superb Fed staff. And they'll have a straightforward charge. Start with first principles. Ask hard questions. Examine current practice. Consider alternatives. And ultimately, propose next steps for policymaker consideration. Since last summer, my colleagues discussed possible improvements in the form and function of Fed communications. This new task force will build on that effort, and I expect propose some well-considered changes, including to the SEP I mentioned a few moments ago. The second task force, the one on balance sheet policy, will review the benefits and risks of the current ample reserves regime and the composition of the Fed's balance sheet. They will assess alternative frameworks for the conduct and operation of monetary policy. The third task force, the one on data, will evaluate new information sources and consider methodological changes to improve data gathering, with the aim of giving policymakers more accurate, relevant, contemporaneous, and perhaps most important, actionable information on the state of our economy. Fourth, the task force on productivity and jobs. It'll survey the pace, the reach, the economic impact of new general purpose technologies, including AI, and explore the implications for the Fed in pursuit of our employment and inflation mandates. The last task force, the one on inflation frameworks, that'll examine the drivers of inflation, first principles, and weigh the full range of ideas for delivering price stability in a changing economy. You'll hear quite a bit more about these task forces and this overall initiative in the coming weeks. Enough for now to make a simple statement. Each task force will serve an objective shared by everyone in the system, shared by everyone around that table that I sat with over the last couple of days. A Federal Reserve that is clear-eyed about its mission, fit for purpose, and focused on the future. And with that, I appreciate your attention. I'm happy to take your questions.
Hi, Chairman Howard Schneider with Reuters. Good to see you again, and welcome back. This is a lot to be putting in motion so fast. What is the timeline you have in mind for each of these?
So I think it'll depend on the task force. It also depends on the urgency in which we need clear answers. My expectation, I'm still in the business of recruiting and finalizing them. My expectation is the task forces will begin work in the next couple of weeks, and we'll start to get some more information from them, some more framing of how they see things starting in the fall end, hopefully most, if not all of them, concluding by year end.
And just specifically on the inflation framework, you talk about first principles. Does this include a review of the 2% target itself? You've mentioned that things to the right of the decimal point don't matter. Should this be starting from a premise that 2% as a point estimate is too strict?
Let me break that into two pieces. First, on the inflation framework review, their remit is what are the drivers of inflation? What's the Fed's responsibility for inflation? In part, how do we measure inflation? But that'll overlap with my data group. On the 2% inflation objective, that is the Federal Reserve's long-held objective of 2%. You've heard me say before, I tend to focus on the left of the decimal point. Well, the 2 is the left of the decimal point. For now, 0 is to the right. I see no reason until we have reestablished our commitment and ability to deliver on the 2% inflation objective to revisit that. So that'll be outside the scope of what we're taking on.
Thank you so much. Colby Smith with the New York Times. You've in the past said that inflation is a choice, and in the policy statement, it includes this pledge to deliver price stability, as you've reiterated today. But looking at the SEP, the bulk of your colleagues expect core PCE to run around 3.3% by year end, and for the 2% inflation target not to be reached until 2028. So I'm curious how patient you think the Fed can afford to be at this juncture in terms of waiting for one-time inflation waves to wash through and for underlying inflation to step down after so many years of inflation running above target, and under what circumstances you would support the Fed taking some action and raising rates.
Sure. So quite a bit there. Let me try to break that into pieces. First, we have the capability and commitment to deliver on our price stability objective of 2%. That's exactly what we're going to do. In the Fed's review of its strategy over the last any number of years, in January, the Fed, including the strategy that we're still bound by, the Fed statement says that inflation is primarily determined by monetary policy. You bet it is. I've said for years, inflation is a choice. You bet it is. And today I'm announcing that this committee unambiguously and unanimously have decided we are going to deliver on that. The rest of your questions sounded like an encouragement for me to give forward guidance. We've dropped forward guidance. Some along the committee, I think, dropped it, I suspect, from our discussion the last couple of days, because they said at this moment in time, it doesn't feel as though providing forward guidance is right. Others have, I'd say, different views and think as a general proposition, forward guidance isn't the business we should be in. But that'll be taken up by the Task Force on Communications and my policymaker colleagues. We're going to listen hard to what the experts say and make our own decision. But I can't give any forward guidance about what we're going to do next. The good news is we'll be meeting in 6 weeks.
So just following up, I guess, on the current policy settings, then I am curious how restrictive you think things are at the current moment, given the flow of data that we've seen and, forecasts that are coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, I've heard characterizations both inside and the Fed about that. I'll give you my own. It's uneven. If I look at the housing markets as one example, Fed policy isn't the single determinant of the state of the housing market. But broadly, I would say Fed policy appears to be somewhat restrictive. I would have a hard time managing to say those words if I were to see what's happening in financial markets. So I'd say it's uneven. That's perhaps a function of different transmission mechanisms of monetary policy, whether monetary policy is coming from our interest rate tool or our balance sheet tool. But the good news, we have a task force on that too, and the balance sheet task force will be looking more at that subject.
You've said you don't like forward guidance. You dropped it from the statement this time, but with the dot plot, 9 members suggested that they want a rate increase by the end of the year, and the markets have taken that as forward guidance. So what does this mean in terms of how you guide the markets and in terms of what the dot plot's future is?
I'm going to have to give you the same answer I gave to Ms. Smith. We've got a task force for that. I'll give you a little bit more. I reviewed the dot plots, and when I saw the submissions, I noted that all the submissions were coming in with pencils, those kind with the big erasers. That's to say that I think my colleagues around the table, when they submitted their dots, understand the world is changing quite quickly. And they didn't feel bound by them 6 weeks from now or 6 days from now in the event that their circumstances change. I'll note a couple other things. What I heard around the table was, as they submitted their modal forecasts, to be clear, weren't this was more likely than not. This was more likely than their other scenarios. So I didn't hear tons of conviction. What I heard was the kind of humility that I think we should have. I did not submit a dot. For me, it's not helpful in the conduct of policy. I suspect by year end, as I mentioned in my opening statements, there'll be a review about communications broadly. press conferences, dots, meetings and the like, transcripts, minutes. This will be part of that. I don't want to prejudge the outcomes there, but I'm pretty open-minded about what they could be. And I was just incredibly impressed over the last couple of days. My colleagues over the last 2 days, and frankly, over the first 3 weeks I've been here, they've been very open about changes. Change isn't easy, change is filled with risk, but our number one goal is to get monetary policy right. The way to get monetary policy right is to deliver on the remit that Congress gave us, to deliver on price stability. And there was no disagreement on any of those points.
At the risk of possibly getting the same answer about task forces, communications, what is your feeling about these news conferences? Are you going to continue one after every meeting? Do you find them useful? What is the future for the way Kevin Warsh will communicate?
Well, this one's probably got another 15 or 20 minutes in it, so I don't want to prejudge the outcome. Press conferences can be a very useful way to communicate with households, businesses, and more broadly through using the likes of you. I had a great old mentor named George Shultz, and his mantra was press conferences are useful, but when you have one, you want to make sure you have something important to say. Today, I think we had something important to say about our commitment to deliver on price stability, our commitment to rethink practices with an eye of moving the Fed forward, and to give you and the American people a sense that these aren't idle thoughts, these are concrete thoughts, that we're going to seek out the best minds, both the best thinking inside of the Federal Reserve and the best people I know in business and economics and the academy and technology and the rest to share their views. That's what we're going to be doing here, the pursuit of truth. I think we're going to come up with some new and interesting things. We made some changes today. I expect more changes to come. And some of those might well be worthy of a press conference.
Hi, Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. Thanks for taking our questions. Could you give us a sense of how you see inflation more in the long term? I know you may not want to comment on the ups and downs, but is this mainly driven by energy prices in the Iran war at this point, or do you have any concerns about underlying inflation pressures in the economy? Thank you.
So I can't do much better than the committee just did. So let me restate it. Inflation remains elevated relative to the committee's 2% goal, in part reflecting supply shocks that have driven price increases in certain sectors, including energy. The paragraph goes on to say, but to be clear, the Fed will deliver price stability. My own judgment is the committee spent quite a bit of time, not just in 2 days, but over iterations of a couple of weeks. That's what we're prepared to say about inflation, but the commitment to deliver is strong, unanimous, and unambiguous. And that's, I think, an important message. We've missed for 5 years, and we're going to fix that.
Well, great. And then just on the data task force and everything else, I mean, generally speaking, I think people feel the Fed looks at everything already. Certainly that was the sense from before. Is there data that you feel is not given enough weight? I mean, you mentioned the trimmed the mean in the past, but again, that's well known to certainly most Fed members. So what is that task force looking at, and what might be I mean, I know you don't want to prejudge the outcome, but are there examples of data that you expect might be given more weight? Thank you.
So you're answering my question. So let me say, I don't want to prejudge the outcome. I also don't want to say too much about what they're going to do because I still have a phone call or two to make before I've nailed down the people that are doing that. I'm interested in what the outside experts' view is on the subject. I'll say this generally. Most of the data that central bankers and other government officials in the United States consume come with old-fashioned survey methods, national accounts of what the U.S. economy looks like that looks very little like the U.S. economy in 2026. Survey methods that don't have response rates that we need, asking questions that might have been quite applicable a generation ago that are less applicable now. So even inside of official statistics, I would be open-minded if the task force and our own best thinking had recommendations how those official statistics can be brought up to a standard of our time using new analytic methods. I'd also say this, almost every private company CEO that's running his or her business are doing so with real-time information that isn't subject to much revision, that is telling them what just happened at that very moment. As you know, there are normal, long and variable lags in the conduct of monetary policy. What we're really interested in is what's happening right now. What we're less interested in is echoes of history. And you're hearing from my answer that some of the data that we receive, that we're waiting on, the first Friday after the month, the payroll index or something else, that might be an echo of history that's quite useful on its third revision. We need to take those error bounds down because we have to make hard decisions in real time. I'm really open-minded that there is a lot of new data sources that we can learn from the private sector, from reforms in the official sector, and new analytic techniques that are far more refined than asking a simple question about whether something was core or non-core.
Thanks. Welcome, Mr. Chairman. Edward Lawrence with Fox Business. So if you don't give a lot of ongoing forward guidance, won't the markets have more volatility? And shouldn't Americans have more access into what you're thinking going forward?
So I think financial markets perform best when they react to incoming data. I think the financial markets work less efficiently when they ask a question, how will the Federal Reserve react to that incoming information? The more that markets are paying attention to what's happening in the real economy, deciding what's good data and what's less good data, the more financial markets can price what they believe is the most likely and what are the tail risks. Financial market prices are probably the most important source of information to guide central bankers. But when all the financial markets are doing is reflecting back what we've said, then we're taking the most important source of information and we're being blind to it. I'd like us to create a system where those blinders come off, where markets are following data that they efficiently think is reliable, and they'll be watching data, we'll be watching data. They'll come with better information through market prices to us. We can make more informed decisions, with ultimately the goal that I said at the outset, deliver on the price stability objective that Congress told us to do, and that we've got to get in the business of doing.
Yeah, if I could take you in the meeting a little bit. This is your first meeting. The board members seem fairly hawkish when you listen to, in general, when you listen to what they're saying. Was there any discussion of a rate cut going forward today?
There was one proposal on the table. There was no discussion of any other proposals. The discussion on that proposal, I would say, was quite limited. The group was unanimous and unambiguous on it. It has been the practice of this central bank and others to have a range of alternatives. Today we had one. I thought it furthered discussion, deepened it, and made it clear what we needed to do and how we needed to deliver. I wouldn't prejudge what happens in the future, but there was only one big subject for us. We took it on. We had a good family fight on it for a couple of days, and we ended up, I think, in a better place.
Thanks a lot, Claire Jones, Financial Times. Coming to this blind, reading this very nice short statement that I think we've all appreciated in the room, one might wonder why you didn't raise rates today, considering what you're saying here about the risks to US inflation and your mandate. I guess, why not, and what would you need to see in order to get to that place? And secondly, on your task forces, are there any best practices at other central banks that you'd consider looking at? Thank you.
I'm glad they're in the practice of giving you two questions, because my answer to your first question was going to be very curt. I've got nothing more to say than the statement itself. And to the point of the question I got before, market reactions to what we say unfiltered, I think is more helpful than having delivered a statement, me then improvising further upon it. Best practices of task forces. This is a subject I've thought some about. I've been on a task force or two in my life. Best practice, find the best minds. Ensure that the task forces have a range of people, both by backgrounds and predispositions, so they too can have a bit of a family fight Make sure when you establish a task force that the group that's going to be the recipient of the information feels as though they've got some equities in it too. That's why we're looking for, haven't done the final roll call, some of the most significant talent we have in the building and across the reserve banks on each of these, and in some sense seconding them to this group for a period of some number of months, so that the leaders of the task force know what the most analytical central bank in the world thinks about that. They can reflect on it. And a final best practice, we're not outsourcing decisions to anybody. Administrations past and present, reserve banks have chosen a group of 19 people around the table. These will be our decisions. We can agree to some of the recommendations, disagree with others, have a good family fight about it. But what comes from them will, I hope and believe, make the discussion we have internally better, stronger, more of a dialectic, so that we can finally deliver on that price stability objective.
Just a quick follow-up on your markets point. If you look at 2-year yields, they're really suggesting that markets think more tightening is needed. Would that be your read on what the 2-year yield is saying as well?
We were in such a good place. This is why we don't do third questions, I presume. I'm not going to offer any commentary on market reaction over the last 30 or 60 minutes. What we've given markets is a new chapter for the central bank, some fresh thinking. What we've given markets and households and businesses, I think, is a commitment to ask ourselves hard questions such that we can deliver on the promises that we've made before. This is a lot of change for financial markets to digest. I wouldn't be particularly intrigued by how they react in the first several minutes or even first several days. What I think is most important is that financial markets, and at least as important, households and businesses know that this central bank will deliver on price stability.
Hi, Chairman Warsh. Brian Chung with NBC News. Thank you for taking our questions. So when you say that we've dropped forward guidance for the layperson, that might sound like the Fed's going to say less or offer less insight into where their borrowing costs might go. So for the person that maybe you might run into at the grocery store, where the price tags are rising at a faster pace than their wages at the moment, how would you explain it to them? I don't know if task force might be the answer there, but how would you kind of communicate this era, this chapter of the Fed?
If I told somebody in the milk aisle that I had a task force for that, I think that would be doing a very poor job. So I appreciate it. If I saw somebody in the grocery store, what I would say to them is that we cannot have a very significant effect on particular prices. The price of oil in the markets today, or even the price of a dozen eggs, that does not have first order consequences to what we're doing. But we do have a really important job there. And it's to make sure that those changes in oil or beef or eggs or milk don't broaden in the economy, don't have second and third order effects. That's our job. That's our commitment. That's our capability. And we're going to deliver on it.
And then is the Fed's relationship with the Treasury also under review? There was the normal breakfast meetings with the Treasury Secretary. Is that something you intend to continue doing? And have you had conversations with the president since you're swearing in?
So on the president, I don't have anything for you. With respect to the Treasury Secretary, he has been posting pictures of our breakfast. So I don't think I can deny that. The long tradition at the central bank is that the Fed chairman and the Treasury Secretary meet weekly. I think we've pulled off 3 of those so far. I believe he's overseas this week, so this will be the exception to the rule. I think they're very useful discussions. The central bank's objectives and our roles and responsibilities are quite delineated from the fiscal authorities. And in my view, monetary policy is independent in the conduct of what we do. But that doesn't mean we're not interested in what's happening with the fiscal authorities. The way I think about it is this central bank needs to have a wide lens, but a narrow remit. We need to be quite interested in what's happening in the world. I won't be breaking any news here to suggest I'm quite interested in what's happening in the Middle East. That does have some effect on our day job. It doesn't mean it's our responsibility, but I think we're going to keep a wide lens, and my meetings with Secretary Besson to this point have helped widen that aperture. So we're aware of things that could affect our day job, even if it isn't.
Steve Leisman, CNBC. Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for taking my question. You had said in the before you became chairman that you thought productivity was a reason why the Federal Reserve could lower interest rates. Do you still believe that to be the case?
So the committee had a discussion of productivity today. AI came up. The way I thought about it before and socialized with the group is that artificial intelligence, the latest generation of general purpose technology, is perhaps as important a change in the economy and business and households that we've had in my adult lifetime. It is filled with both a huge opportunity and with risks. I take both of those very seriously. You may have heard me say before that AI is shorthand perhaps for American ingenuity. That doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. That certainly doesn't mean it's not going to be disruptive. But over the long term, my conviction, and I heard quite a bit of support for this around the committee today, is the United States is a winner as we go down this. The United States is ultimately going to be better off in that. Now, to bring that back to the conduct of policy, timing, scale, speed, implications for output and employment, it's one of the things we have a task force to do.
If you don't mind, a follow-up from the other side, which is that when you look at the strong job growth that's out there, the elevated inflation, GDP seems to be going pretty good, and the stock market seems to be soaring. Do you look around this economy and see the funds rate being restrictive?
So that's your second question. I'm going to give the same answer that I gave before. I'd say as I think about the conduct of policy, what matters is what's the effect of policy, not what do we say, but what happens. And the best way I can describe is it's uneven. I do see some restrictiveness in things like housing. It's hard to use those same words anywhere else. I'll just make one other point. You talked about one of our dual mandates on the employment side. I don't believe that we have a cruel choice. I don't share the view that was expressed a few generations ago that Federal Reserve chairmen show up at a podium like this and say, you got to choose. And you're going to have to decide whether you're willing to tolerate higher inflation to put more people at work. I don't believe in that. What I believe is if we do our job, we can make strong growth, low prices, and strong employment mutually compatible. And so what you heard from the committee today is we've got some work to do on this price stability front.
Nick. Thank you. Nick Timmeros with Wall Street Journal. Chairman Warsh, you've said repeatedly credibility is earned by delivering. If credibility requires delivering, the move would be to tighten or at least to threaten to. Now, you didn't do that today. Why not?
That judgment you expressed was not expressed by any of the 19 people around the table. We'll be meeting in 6 weeks. We'll take up the issue again.
And if I could ask about AI, the build out is generating enormous demand right now, CapEx, data centers, power. The productivity payoff may be further out. So in your judgment today, is AI adding more to demand or to supply?
It's a good question. At the central bank in an economics profession, what we spend most of our time doing is counting demand. It's easier. We can see it, we can count it, we can check it, we can revise it. What we do, though, is we infer supply. You'll notice in the second paragraph of what one of your colleagues described as a very short statement, we have a sentence on the demand side and a sentence about the same length on the supply side. They're both important. Just because we can count one better than the other doesn't mean we're going to favor one more than the other. With respect to AI and the growth of data centers and infrastructure around it, we're counting the demand side, and it is no doubt showing up in GDP figures. We can be less certain when we infer the timing and extent of the growth in the supply side. It may well be an intuition the supply side is going to expand, but it'll take longer. I just describe it this way. There's a race between supply and demand. Milton Friedman says that the only thing we know about economics is that there's a supply line and a demand line they ultimately cross. When they cross and what are the implications for policy? The good news for you is we have a task force for that.
Andrew.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. It sounded like on the task force on data that you were looking at overhauling or completely overhauling the system of national accounts, the way the government mines the economy. Is that your ambition?
In a word, no. In a few words, much of this data gathering happens in other government agencies to which we owe a tremendous amount of respect, tremendous amount of deference. But if in the course of this, we come up with recommendations, which Fed staff have already begun to develop about things that they could be doing to help inform us as policymakers, we're not going to hesitate. Again, I don't want to try to delineate the four corners of the research of the task force on data, but I do think there will be a review of official statistics, and at least as important, a view of bringing the best practices from the private sector and new analytical tools made possible by AI so we can forge these into a fabric that gives us better real-time information. So as I mentioned before, when we're making decisions that we'd say are real contemporaneous data, not data that we call contemporaneous, that's really an echo of history.
Okay. Thanks. The other question I wanted to ask is related to the building renovations. Are you considering any changes to the renovations, the projects, just in light of the fact that they became kind of a political football in the last year?
I heard something about that. I don't think I'm breaking any news, but my view, when you show up at a new institution, you should go meet with the Inspector General, just as a matter of good practice. It's a practice that I hope to continue. I've had one meeting with the Inspector General, and he told me what I believe the world knows, which he'll be coming out with a report on the building and the building projects at some point later this summer. I'll be interested in reading the report. From my perspective, with a forward-looking glance, is there anything that we can be doing or should be doing from this moment until the completion of the project to do what we can to be good stewards of taxpayer money and make sure that we're delivering on the promises that we made? Some more work to do. You might not be surprised in the first few weeks. I've been somewhat preoccupied on other matters, but I promised to get to the full breadth of the Fed's tasks in the weeks ahead.
Victoria.
Hi, Victoria Guida with Politico. So I know that you did not submit a forecast, but you are the person who is authorized to speak on behalf of the FOMC. So I'm wondering if you could tell us in the SEP, the increase in the expectations for inflation, is that all because of the Iran war? What was the discussion around what the expectations for inflation being higher and also potentially growth being slower?
So my read of what I heard in the room reflected, I must admit, in the SEPs, is half of my colleagues thought the policy rate, given all those developments, should be at this level or lower between now and year end, and the other half thought higher. That 19th voter was me, and I didn't submit one. There's a range of views on the questions of first and second round effects, no resolution or conviction, but we'll be meeting again in 6 weeks. I think we're going to know more then. And I think that my colleagues are very attentive to incoming developments between now and then.
And can I just quick follow up on the SEP? You said that you're still encouraging your fellow committee members to submit forecasts even if you're not doing it. So what do you think is the benefit of them doing it even if you don't?
That's the commitment that the FOMC made, and it's a commitment that I hope we live up to. Commitment we made was to deliver price stability. I expect us to live up to it. By the time we get to the end of this year, as I mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a new communications framework. There were some changes to the SEP. That's a committee discussion, a robust discussion. I think we'll have it. I believe we're going to come to a better mix of communications to deliver on what we promised, but I wouldn't want to prejudge what those are. But between now and then, I would continue to expect colleagues to submit their SEPs. Some of them, believe that the practice is currently structured is okay. But I heard a lot of interest in real reform generally about all these topics. You didn't ask it, but I'll answer. It was a pretty gracious couple of days, and it's been a pretty warm few weeks. The institution wants to figure out how we can do better. The institution's going back to first principles, and I'm encouraged that what we've done in the statement, what we're thinking about doing with respect to the SEP, that instinct towards a new chapter is a real one. And by the end of the year, I hope we can put some points on the board, both in form and in substance of delivering.
Go to Enda for the last question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Enda Curran, Bloomberg News. Could you guide us through, please, some of the principles that guide your own reaction function, and tell us a little bit about the kind of conditions that you think when the Fed should respond?
It's going to be a very unsatisfactory answer to the final question. The Federal Reserve has a lot of responsibilities, not just in monetary policy, but in supervision and regulation, consumer affairs, and payments. My own view is our credibility comes from delivering on what we're saying we're going to do across everything we do. I've devoted more time in my first 3 weeks to monetary policy than all those things. But the more we deliver on our promises as good supervisors and good regulators, the more benefit we get, the more credibility enhancement we have in monetary policy. When we deliver on our price stability objectives, which we will, the American people will feel as though the hardships that they've been living through, in part because of inflation the last 5 years, are in the rear view mirror. And that credibility will have dividends across what we do. And the institution will come to press conferences like this, always with an impetus to reform, always with an impetus to do better. But we're going to put some points on the board.
And Mr. Chairman, strong labor data in recent months, how would you sum up the labor market right now? Do you see it as stable and as potentially a source of inflation? Thank you.
Yeah, so the committee, if I were to try to capture how the committee thought about it, the committee thought that the labor markets were stable. There were some people around the committee who thought that it was trending better than that. Trends matter more than data points. What's happening over 3 or 6 months matters more than any one data point, any one data release. And I'd say the jobs data has been moving in a good direction. If I heard one other thing around that subject over the course of the last couple of days, what I heard was that strong productivity-led growth is not something that we fear, but something we embrace. Thank you all very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am so bullish right now. I don't care what the markets are doing. I could give a shit. What an upgrade we just got. What are the markets doing? We are down. Who cares? This guy is such an upgrade from Powell. It's incredible. So what did I take from this? We're bringing in the best minds in America. We're creating, don't be surprised if you get, I'm not going to say some of the names I want to say, but listen, maybe a Bill Ackman. Maybe we get some other people that are willing to serve on some task forces and committees and talk to the current Fed members that may be a little stubborn. I think Warsh did an excellent job at staying very professional. I think he did an excellent job at not calling anybody out by name. He was gracious. He was great. Maybe he brings in Jamie Dimon. Maybe he brings in some other people. And then, look, you may not like Chamath. You may like Chamath. Him and Freeberg have been a proponent of real-time data. You know what I heard out of this? We're moving to real-time data. If you look at Truflation, the official CPI is 4.2%. Truflation is 1.81%. PCE, 3.77. Truflation, 2.45%. Sorry, but I got to tell you, this guy said we're not going to be we're not going to be scared of productivity. I think he wants to modernize the Fed. I think that he knows it's going to take a little bit of time. I think he's going to bring in the best minds to sit down with all the Fed members. And who the hell are these Fed members to argue with Jamie Dimon, if that's who comes in, or Bill Ackman? I'm so bullish. This guy's such an upgrade. So excited. So excited. Real-time data, bringing in the best minds to talk about things. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I'll tell you what, this guy understands what needs to be done. So bullish. Oh my God. What a damn upgrade. What a damn upgrade from Powell. Oh. I don't think we're getting hikes. I can tell you that. And I think after maybe 5 months, maybe I got to re-listen to it. And then I want to read the transcript. I'm a little emotional right now. But I think we have the door open for one rate cut this year. I think we do. I think this is great. The markets could go down 1,000 points right now. I don't care. I need to digest this and come back with something. But I think we're going to get what we should have had a long time ago. Real-time data is so important. Real-time data. Bringing experts in from industries that matter. This guy's on point. He's sharp. He's what we need. Super bullish, ladies and gentlemen. Super bullish. Oh, man. All right, let's round it out. Let's look at where we are. Oil 76.27. Hood, congratulations, all of you. Congratulations. Congratulations. Nebius, Marvell, next. Micron, doing good still. Rocket Lab 110. AMD 521. SoFi 1808. CoreWeave 119. Palantir 132. What's getting killed? Meta 572. That's crazy. Oh my God. ServiceNow 9748. People are insane. Reddit 169. Salesforce 155. Microsoft 381. TKO 193. Amazon 238. We got some disrespected leaders today. I'll tell you what. Opportunity Alley is where we are. Opportunity Alley. SpaceX holding 197. You got to love that. And look, Kevin Warsh is just one vote. Let's get these task force set up. Let's get some people. I hope Jamie Dimon's on it. I hope David Sachs is on it. I hope Bill Ackman is on it. I really hope so. I like Warsh. What can I say? I'm going to come out with a full thing about the press conference. Full. My whole portfolio is not in the red. Very funny. Anyway, thank you everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. And for hanging out with me for so long. I'm going to get going. I need to have lunch. Got to go to the post office. Got to go to the card shop. And guys, stream with Captain Sleepy Time later. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the afternoon. Thank you for being here. If you liked the stream, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. See everybody later tonight. Have a great day.